is emergency preparedness. We've had 3 disasters that happened in our area, and we were not prepared like we should be. But that's all part of getting together and get it established. And that goes in supporting the growth, though. As we grow, our needs to take care of our citizens grow. So.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all for being willing and obviously able. So we're gonna skip over that and not make a decision if that's okay with you, and we'll wait till Councilman Stein gets back. Let's go.
Do you need a motion for that, to table that, or are we just going to postpone it?
No, we'll just postpone it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Next item is council liaison board reports. Let's start on this side this time. Councilwoman Martinez.
I was not able to attend. I was with the Legion at School Awards.
Okay. Councilman Carey.
Yes, Planning and Zoning Board did meet last Wednesday and did discuss 3 items that are on our agenda today and have passed all 3 of them on for our consideration.
All right. All right. Thank you. And nothing was ZBA, correct?
No, ZBA had not met.
All right. Councilman King.
The Historic Landmark Commission hasn't met since the last council meeting. Their meeting is tomorrow. They have a special call meeting tomorrow.
Great. And on that packet, you got to look at the picture that's over at the house where they're looking at adding in the door in the historic home.
That is in it. That's the second time it's come up. But
Do you know who that is?
Whose house that is?
No, who's the girl in the picture?
Oh, yes. It was Donna's mama.
Yeah.
She left.
It was Helen.
She's not here. No. Yeah, no, I knew that was Helen in that picture, so.
I thought that was cool. She said, yeah, my mom, she closed up a lot of the doors.
Yeah.
All right, Councilman Dyer.
The library board met, but I was not there because I was on vacation, so I'm not able to report on it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so next item, and I want to walk through and make sure that I have this correct. I think that with the appointment of council liaisons for the city boards, we had, and I'll mention what I think that we had looked at in discussions with each one of you. I think that Herb has been doing a lot of stuff with the parks and has had a lot of input, especially with the CCC, with the sports complex, with some of the other stuff that they're doing. So I think that it would be a good idea for Councilman Dyer to move over to the library board. The other thing, for convenience sake, for Councilwoman Martinez to move over to the library board. It's nice, close by, and they've got a lot of stuff that's going on. I think it'd be really good to be involved with that. And then Councilman Carey and Councilman King staying in the same positions. Councilman Carey with the Planning and Zoning and ZBA. Councilman King with the Historic Landmark Commission. And then Councilman Stein had expressed interest in staying with District 4 in the airport board, advisory board. And then I think that he had said with the joint airport zoning board as well.
Sure.
He may not know it, but yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's a different word. That-
Well, you don't show up, and that's what you get.
If not, no. maybe.
Okay, so unless we have any discussion on that, I think that's who we put in each place. Is that all right?
I'm happy.
Does that work? Okay, great. And we don't need a motion on that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. All right. Next item, presentation of the winning entry of the annual Poppy Poster Contest. And the artist was not able to be here, so I believe that Arnie is going to be presenting.
The artist or the individual who started this whole Poppy Poster Contest about 7 years ago is out working with the high school tennis team, doing some extra coaching for getting them ready for some tournament that they're having soon. The whole idea of this was when CADC was responsible for tourism in the city, to create something that would bring more interest in tourism. And so the Poppy Poster Contest was one thing. Initially it was adults and high school and junior high. We've expanded it to more youthful groups, and this year we had, if my memory is correct, 38 entrants of all age groups. And the individual that won this year is a Colby Hans, who lives up by Lake Medina, and she hasn't been able to make it, where we've tried to arrange things for the last, since March. And this is the winning poster, and historically, we have given one to the city each year, and they're all up there behind City Council, showing the different types of artwork that there is. It's been anything from, this is all computer generated. There's some that are real paint and ink. There's some that have been hand drawn all the way around. And so what we've done is just present it to the city, and they have it as part of helping do tourism. So I would like to present on behalf of the Poppy Poster Contest Committee to the mayor of Castroville this year's 2022 Poppy Poster. Oh, yes.
Pat, you never looked better.
Well, thank you. One thing that we do, we always have a business out of San Antonio called Documation that prints usually about 40 of the winning posters for us. And we sell them, if they're autographed by the artist, for $35, if they're non-autographed, for $25. And I have some of each here, and that funds most of the prize money. We give out, this year it was $1,075 worth of prize money to the winners of all the different categories. So if anybody is interested in purchasing one, I have them with me, and if not, we'll get Pat Moritz to come find you. So, anyway, thank y'all, and
Thank you,
thanks for
Art.
Thank you.
supporting all this over the years.
Wonderful.
We should see about, Paul had a good idea, see about putting those up on the wall or something.
I do have some command strips.
Oh, okay.
I get the guys to come in.
got good
And there's a wall,
Yeah, I mean,
there's a wall here we
right
don't
here,
use for
since we
anything
do
else.
that now.
Now that we're not using that, yes.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Oh, thank you.
And that wall doesn't leak.
All right.
Back up.
So the next item is a public hearing on a request for planned unit development amendment request for approximately 415.15 acres located at the property north of Highway 90 West and east of Tondra Drive, also known as Alsatian Oaks. And we've gone through this with a lot of different considerations and a lot of the details. Scott, you want to, are you going to present that?
Well, you need to open the
Oh, sorry.
public hearing.
I'm going to open the public, I told you, Scott, to keep me in line. We're going to open the public hearing at 5:43.
Yeah, I can show what's in the packet. Give me a minute.
So it's pretty much the same. They've reconfigured with the northern route in mind. What they had before was primarily a north-south route with some kind of offshoot, and so they've realigned that with the concept of the northern route. Just to be clear, the number of houses has not changed. According to the original agreement, it was 950 homes. It is still 950 homes. They've expanded a little bit of the commercial, and they have moved around the school and the amenity center and a couple of other items. So they're fairly minor changes, but it still needs to go through the approval process.
They reduced the 2 acres that the city was going to get to 1.4.
Right, and we will, that was one of the items that, that we are addressing with them. What did you come up with that? That's, I think that there is nothing in this that will change the original agreement. What we want to do is make sure that we're capturing those items that we've noticed on here to ensure that they're captured in the meeting minutes.
So for the benefit of the viewing audience, what you're seeing is the original land use plan, and then this is the new land use plan. You were talking about the 2 acres, Herb. That is an omission, and I'm viewing it as an error. I did have some discussion with the developer about that. I think their intent was to replace the 2 acres with the 1.4 for the water tower, but that is not what we've agreed to. This plan cannot amend an agreement in that fashion. It can't be used to amend the agreement. So I've conveyed that to them, and I've explained that the only way that this can be approved tonight is if we approve it on the condition that they resubmit a land use plan that shows the 2 acres as dedicated as per the agreement. And I've talked to our attorney about that. We would both feel more comfortable if they could just bring this back to us, but honestly, that adds a lot of time from the public hearing announcements and all that stuff, so we don't have to redo that. But that is an omission, and they need to correct that.
And I think that I've got an idea of what the motion would be if we are to approve that, and so I'll state that at the end and just have you confirm.
That would be,
That's the next item, though.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did have yeah, thank you for not letting us get ahead of ourselves. I did have a discussion, I think that's the only item that they want to make as a condition, because they're going to have to make other PUD amendments in the future, and there's not enough on the 120-foot right-of-way dedication, for instance. We're talking about this, again, for the, I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
my
let's
cursor or
walk
not,
through
but-
for the people that are in here, just for
Right.
the orientation. On your right-hand side, this is as you're looking down Highway 90, so the right-hand
This
side
is
is
90.
Highway 90. You can see down just to the left of that cursor, that's where Walmart is.
The label Kinley
Yeah.
Horn is at the
So-
south, so, yeah.
This is, right?
That's Walmart. Yep.
Walmart, yes.
So the northern route that we've heard discussed by the city council from time to time, that we're still in the process of planning with the county, is this road here. We have worked with the other developers to ensure that to the extent that there is planned development that's in the works, that there is continuity and discussion of how that this roadway is to meet. And currently, the intent is to get 120 feet dedicated to the city for that purpose. So anyway, so this does not reflect 160 feet, it
120.
reflects 60.
120.
But as you all know, we still are waiting on the thoroughfare plan to be finished. We're still waiting on a lot of back and forth between the developers about how that 120 feet gets dedicated. So that was the part I was just referring to that will probably come in a subsequent plan process.
And just for people's awareness, and I apologize for anybody who can't see the colors correctly, because this is color-coded. So all of the stuff in red to your right, that's all commercial, which is typical. Down Highway 90, it'll be similar to what you see up on in that area. The blue is all floodplain, that's Flat Creek that goes through there. Outside of this boundary, that's property that is other property.
This area is not,
So those are all the
these are
kind of
residential units.
residential units, yeah, thank you. Then we have more, so part of the addition
Talk
is,
about what this is.
that is the amenity center. So they had shown that in other drawings as about 8 acres, and they've been refining it. It looks like it's going to be just over 4 acres. And there's more information about there's more information on the city's website about what that looks like. And there's a lot more details if you want to look up on the site. Just do a search on CastrovilleTX.gov for Alsatian Oaks, and we have lots of presentations from when they did the town hall, and you can see some of those details. But the addition on the four corners was the commercial. One of the items that I was concerned with was access. We don't want to...
Oh, along here.
Yeah, along the northern route, we don't want the northern route to get slowed down by people trying to get in and out. One of the reasons that we've got so much problem down Highway 90 is you've got all these curb cuts. People are coming out, they're going left, they're going right, they're slowing us down. And so we want to make sure that that has a clean flow. And then down toward the bottom left, the purple, is the space allocated for the elementary school. The MVISD is going to have to work that out with them, but that's where they've designated that spot for it. I think that's actually a better spot. Before, it was just to the right, and it was kind of enclosed between a street and a floodplain and a green space, and so this just opens it up. If something develops north or west of that, for kids to be able to get to school. And then the green are just open green spaces.
These areas.
And what they were talking about before was on the very top left, that was the city dedicated, but that was actually committed to in the commercial space of 2 acres. and they had proposed it down right at the end of the circle at Tundra Lane. So we'll work through that.
Yeah, this is going to be where the water
Please,
tower is.
if anybody would like to speak for public comments, just come on up, same thing as we did for citizens'
Can we
comments.
make one more comment about this drawing?
Absolutely, yes.
Wait, can you move the drawing up just an inch or two?
Oh, gotcha, yeah, for the other side
Okay,
of Highway
on the
90.
bottom, you see the red square with the black dotted line. If you take, in your mind, move that black dotted line over to the right on Highway 90, you see there's a black dotted
Over
line.
here.
That square actually belongs on the south side of Highway 90. It's almost 15 and a half acres. It's 4 commercial lots. It's part of the project.
Directly in front of our airport.
Yep.
Right.
Right. And the little space in between lots A and B, that lines up with Tundra Parkway. All right,
And
great.
Thunder Parkway's going to go away, though. I mean, the light's going to go away. That, everybody needs to understand that the light going into Walmart is going to go away. And there's going to be a new light on Alsatian Oaks Boulevard, in and out.
Right here.
And so for people who want to go to the Walmart, they will come in on Alsatian Oaks Boulevard, and you see there's a new connector road that goes directly down to Walmart. That's how you'll get into Walmart.
Well,
You'll still be able to get out 3
From the
ways.
west.
So let's not get too far down that road because TxDOT still hasn't figured all of that out.
But that's what that is,
Right.
and that's the connector road.
Yeah, there's actually,
There's other ways to get into it, the way that they're looking at it, but I don't want to get too far ahead because they haven't finished that out. It's not going to be that difficult to get into it. I think it'll actually be a little bit easier to get into it than it is now. Okay, I'm sorry, we had a citizen comment. Please step up to the microphone. Again, state your name and address.
David Mers, 148 Village Path. I just had 2 clarifying questions. What is the scale of this map? Like how long is it from the top of that box to the bottom of that box? And then also, what are those 2 mustard yellow areas?
Those are also housing units.
I will show you the scale.
And actually, if you look at it, Walmart if you picture how Walmart is in there, the very top of it is at 471 right across from the Circle K.
Yeah, there's a scale.
I'm just wondering broadly, like
Sorry.
how far
Sorry, folks.
someone at the top of the planned development might have to walk to get to that school, if that is even feasible.
Yeah, it's not as walkable as I would like it. Yeah.
The scale looks like it's 1 to 200 feet, but but the entire scope of that drawing is the entirety of Alsatian Oaks, which is about 400 acres, so.
Right.
If you look at what it takes to walk across Walmart, you can use that to visualize how far the walk is to the school.
Okay, thank you.
And that was one of the reasons that I was concerned about, because there are a lot of people from Alsatian Oaks that, assuming that elementary school does get built, that would have to have access into there, and we want to make sure that they're not backing up. So we're not going to, well, we've got to work it out with the traffic engineers, but we need to not have a bunch of entrances, especially one for schools and commercial that are potentially going to back up there.
For a visual, the purple square that's the elementary, that looks like that's about a 600 by 800 rectangle. The purple square that's a school, just using that scale on the right, that's a 400-foot scale, 400 feet per inch. And I would, just using my eyeballs, I would say that's about a 600 by 800 square or rectangle the school is. So this area right here. So again, if you look at the entire project, that just kind of puts it in scale for you. This length here is about 600 feet,
Yeah, about right.
more or less.
All right. Anybody else, any other citizens' comments, questions? All right, so we'll close the public meeting at 5:54. Next item is discussion and take appropriate action on a request for a planned unit development amendment request for approximately 415.15 acres located at the property north of Highway 90 West and east of Tundra Drive, also known as Alsatian Oaks. I believe that the motion on this would be to approve the item as stated, contingent on on, what would it be?
Addressing the 2-acre tract.
Well, it's, as long as it doesn't conflict with our existing development agreement with them. Is that what it is? How do we clarify that? So that-
I would, at this stage, I would simply state that the PUD is approved as presented, contingent on correction of the missing 2-acre parcel.
Okay.
And I think that, keeping it at
I
that
think there's
is...
more to it than that, though. I mean,
What's that?
are we going to discuss it, or do you want to discuss it? Or?
Which other items?
Well, I got a whole bunch of things I'd like to discuss about. I don't know about the other councilmen,
No, absolutely. We can discuss this.
but
That-
it's stuff that we really ought to discuss in executive session. And I kind of, what I would suggest is that we schedule an executive session to discuss all the things that we want to present as questions back to the developer, because speaking for myself, I don't think they have the authority to change the development agreement.
They do not.
And
No,
they have
they do not.
changed a lot of things in here that are dictated in the development agreement. For example, they have reduced the amenity center by 50% in size. What does that mean? They showed us a picture, they described what it was, and now it's something else. What is it? What did they take out? I want to know before I agree to it. Secondly, the 2 acres that they're supposed to give the city, they're now saying, oh no, we're gonna count where you put the water tower and the well as the 2 acres. Well, that's not what the development agreement says. The 2 acres was 2 acres of land they were going to give the city for public service use. And it was in the center, very close to the Walmart, and not quite the center, over to where the circle is behind the Walmart. It was in that general vicinity.
Yes, it was...
But now it's been moved up to the northwest corner.
It was right
as
here.
far
And
up
we
as
already
you can
discussed
get.
that. So that.
So that's an
part of it.
issue. I want to know what happened to our 2 acres, and why are you counting the
That's what I
water
was-
tower and well as?
That's what I was just talking about. So the 2 acres, they thought they could swap them. I clarified that point. They cannot swap them. We would accept as contingent on correcting that. Now, the other item you mentioned on the amenity center, my question for you on the agreement is, which I believe I already know the answer to, the agreement doesn't say that they have to dedicate 8 acres for an amenity center. It says they have to dedicate an amenity center with specific attributes, right?
Correct.
So this doesn't, that's what I'm saying. So
I'm not disputing that they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
authority to change it,
So I don't-
but I'd like to
for-
know what the changes are before I vote on it.
Right, but I'm just saying that this doesn't have that level of detail. So as they come forward, this is just a land use plan, as they come forward for that 4-acre development, 4+ acre development for the mini center, they're still going to have to meet all the elements of the agreement. And they know that.
In the original agreement, there was pictures, artist concepts, of course, they're not binding, they're just ideas, but now you cut the space
But the
in
time,
half.
I'm just saying the time to have that, I understand your comment, the time to have that discussion is when they're bringing forward the actual plan for the 4.5 acres, which they aren't doing tonight. Tonight's just a land use plan, and from a land use perspective, 4.5 acres, the elements that are in, I don't know why they put 8 acres to begin with, because like if you drive down the road and look at the amenity center that's at east of here, that you can see that's visible from 90, that's about a 2-acre parcel. So 2 acres is, it's hard to visualize, but it's a lot of land, and they're doing 4.5. So again, I'm not trying to defend the developer by any stretch, but I'm saying, I don't know why it was 8 acres to begin with, because that's a lot of land for an amenity center. 4.5 is still a lot of land for an amenity center.
Here's another question. There was a ratio of 50, 60, and 70-foot wide lots that they have had to change because they've adjusted space to give up for road space, things like that. So what has happened
So I
to the
believe that's
ratio?
all- so I believe that's
read
all-
all that, but
yeah.
it doesn't give you the ratio.
It should.
So
No, it's got the table. That is,
So they've been that's one of the things that we've kind of been insistent on, is they're tracking those percentages.
they said that they're within the variance. They had a 3% variance authorized by the development agreement. That was in the agreement. We agreed. There could be up to a 3% variance from what was agreed to originally. Now, how much of that have they done? They say they're within the 3% variance, but I can't see what they, how
Well,
they
this does,
computed that.
I'm just saying this does compute it. And so to the extent, I just want to clarify again, to maybe bring some level of comfort back to you, they cannot amend the agreement through
Oh,
this
yeah,
PUD.
let me-
They still have to meet the terms of the agreement. What they've laid out here, as far as the lots, the depths, the percentages, they all comport with your agreement. So I know that that's okay.
I would support this as long as we have a commitment
As long as it
that
doesn't
says we're going to
conflict.
get an explanation at the appropriate time and understand with our attorney, who is we depend on to help us get the details.
Yeah, so, and that's why I would caution, I know the mayor and I had plenty of conversation prior, because he had some similar concerns, is that this is really not meant to be a detailed plan, it's
No, you
land use
can't
plan.
see the
The
detail.
detailed plans, like for instance, transportation concerns around the school, the width, the roadway widths, the intersection, how those are going to be treated. You heard the mayor speak to the commercial area, the new commercial area that's around that traffic circle. How does that look like? What are the entrances and stuff? So all that's going to be brought to us in detailed plans that we'll have the opportunity to review. So
That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. I appreciate the detail on that. I know you've been very involved with this from the very beginning, so. Councilman King? Did you have any discussion?
So, and I realize the need for haste in this, but if we approve something today, it would be approval with the provision that things are going to change from what we see the plan here. For instance, they're going to have to show us again where is the 2 acres that they're going to give. Is that, are we saying as long as it goes back into the original spot? And so is that,
if that's what you, I don't think they'll have an objection to that, frankly, and if that's what y'all want to say as part of the motion, that's fine.
I think it's approval as long as it doesn't conflict with the original agreement.
I'm going to just show you, so this is where that was more or less. It was in this 2 acres, and I'll bring that up real quick. 'cause it should be
and
there.
was that, the original agreement,
See, it's
it
right
was
there.
2 acres, but it didn't specifically say where it was going to be?
Yeah, it's
Said
right
in the commercial
See
area.
this?
It's right there.
Okay.
It's 2.46, it's at the end of that cul-de-sac.
Understand.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it would still be in this general area, if that's what you want to dictate. I'll be honest, I don't know that, from an economic development standpoint, from what the goals that I've heard from the Economic Development Committee and from the council, I don't know that we really care where that 2 acres is from a commercial development perspective. Considering the fact that this is where it was, if this was acceptable originally, then really, that's, anywhere is acceptable,
Well-
because that's kind of,
I guess what I'm concerned about is
Yeah.
that we have a say in where the 2 acres is.
Sure.
And I think,
not where-
I think it's stipulated that it was in the commercial area.
Right, and then, so, and right there, that's a prime area of the commercial area.
Right.
So we don't want something, so in other words, I guess if we still have the ability to say where the 2 acres is.
this isn't considered prime, just so you know, because of where it's located. It is located next to or near the Walmart,
Yeah.
but it's,
Well, it's not prime in the fact that it's not up on
yeah,
Highway 9.
it would,
but-
yeah.
But we don't need a community separate line. And then the other one, you were given 2 different widths. You said 120 and 160 on the road width.
No, 120 and 60. 60 is the built roadway, that
Okay.
hasn't changed. 120 is the dedicated for future expansion.
Okay, and then that was, so, yeah, I mean, I understand all the discussion here, and I understand Herb's concerns. But as long as, I guess we're having this public discussion, and Mayor, you were saying that you would like to, that the elementary school was more into the center of this versus one corner. But that's, I don't know what the original agreement showed on that. Is that something that?
It was
you're
right
trying to
here
push that?
before.
Do we need to push that part of our approval of this?
No, I think that this location is actually better.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Because you've got major thoroughfares coming through here, there's no way that it's going to be fully walkable by everybody in Alsatian Oaks. The part about having it over here is that it could serve, if west of that gets developed, especially going down the the northern route. If more of that gets developed out, then that could be walkable from the other ones. And then if east of that gets built out, there'll probably be another elementary school.
I understand.
So I think it's good placed there, so it's not, because otherwise, really, you'd either have to cross the northern route, a major route, or you'd have just that one little space of not quite 16 acres. So I think that this space is a really appropriate area.
And they are planning a traffic circle there in the middle, it looks like, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
nice.
And that would be sized appropriately for the northern route.
Sounds good.
All right? Councilman Carey?
I want to reiterate, I think you already said that this is in response to our proposing a thoroughfare there that they are addressing east to west instead of primarily north to south. And I don't think it is an inappropriate response to it. I think that because they were not planning on having heavy traffic going east to west through that area, this is their way of dealing with that proposal. And I think putting the middle school on that major thoroughfare where it would have access east to west on what we would be considering an alternative to Highway 90 is not inappropriate at all.
I think that a curb cut onto the northern route from the elementary school would be completely inappropriate, but that's one of the items that we'll have to deal with. With elementary schools, you've got the pickup and the drop-off, and it's always quite
It's a madhouse.
extensive.
You
Right.
just have to go down 471 here.
And that was one of the details that I wanted to nail out, and what Scott had explained was that this is high-level.
I was going, next
Not the
thing I
details.
was going to say is that this is very generalized.
Right.
When you look at this and you see the floodplain, which they're considering a open space as well, those are not definitive boundaries. That will all be determined when they do the engineering work and come back with an actual plan for that actual site, and then we'll know what the boundaries of the floodplain are. So this is very general. You said high level. I like the word generalized. It's very
Almost
presumptive.
conceptual. Yeah.
So, we will have a chance to look at each one of those units when the time comes and they come back with real solid plans and measurements and elevations and so on. So I don't object to this. I think it is their response to our request for an east-west thoroughfare. So I support it.
All right, great, thank you. Councilwoman Martinez?
I like the new location of the school property because it's not right there near the floodplain. And as everybody knows, if we get the real good rains, everybody says 100 years, yeah, well, 100 years has been thrown out the windows a few times. So I like the new location of the school. As far as the city property, yeah, we want those 2 acres. Because when we were developing this, we had discussed about, maybe putting a couple of public works there, or even a substation for our police department there, with a couple of police officers hubbing out of there. We need that 2 acres. And being right there at the end of that circle would be prime. They could get out, get going. Where that little nook up there in the far back corner, no, not bueno. To get to where they need to go on a call or something like that, especially with the well being there, yeah.
And we have not determined that that's what the
Right.
actual use is going to be.
But still.
Right.
that-
Given our call volume, we ought to just talk to Walmart and see if they'll put us an office inside.
All right, great. So then I think that the motion is to approve as long as nothing conflicts with the development agreement. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I move we approve the planned unit development agreement request for approximately 415.15 acres located at the property north of Highway 90 west and east of Tundra Drive, also known as Alsatian Oaks, with the caveat that we are not agreeing to any changes to the approved development agreement.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right. So the next item that we have on here, and I want to be clear, again, we stated this before, all of these were in front of P&Z, and they were all approved. We're going to walk through those again, kind of unpack it a little bit. And so I'm going to start by opening up the public hearing. This is a public hearing on a request for a planned unit development request for approximately 4.211 acres located at the property east of intersection Country Lane and Meadow Drive for a Hampton Inn hotel.
Now that you've done that, who seconded the last motion?
Sorry.
Councilman Carey.
Okay. I was intensely writing that motion.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so, and I want to talk this through, and then we'll do it the same way as we did the other one. I want to make sure that we give the information so that you know what we're looking at, and then we'll go through public comments, and then we'll close it out and go to a council decision. So what has been proposed here?
Open time.
The time.
Oh, sorry.
Get open it.
Thank you. We're opening at 6:11. See, I don't have time here to kick me. I miss them already. All right, so the area that we're looking at here, can you, do you have it on the zoning map?
If it's in your packet.
I don't think it's in the packet.
Okay. So the area that we're talking about, the entire area back there is it in there?
Yeah, I'm getting. it's
There
right
you go.
All the way back,
There
there
we
it
go.
is.
Okay. Can you zoom out of that just a little bit?
Yeah. So this is this property right here.
And then the two lots.
And then down below,
And
when
that's
he,
these two lots, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. The one and one above, not that one, but the one above it.
This one and this
The
one?
above that.
Yeah.
okay, so as you look at this, go back up.
Uh-huh.
So all of this area in here is zoned commercial. Right now, anybody can come in and open up can open a hotel in either one of those lots. They could buy one of the other lots and tear it down and rebuild a hotel. Hotel is an appropriate use for a commercial area. This has been a commercial area for decades, and it sat for sale for probably, I don't know, a year or two. Somebody bought it up and they want to build a hotel. So because it is in our zoning, because it is an appropriate use, we cannot stop them from building a hotel. What we've asked of everybody that comes in is, if you're going to build something, we know that people are buying property, selling property, they're developing property, we're asking them to go a little bit above and beyond. We're asking them to do a little bit more and to find ways to improve what they're already planning on putting in. So their options were to put in a low-end hotel within the existing zoning limits of 3 stories, or they can put in a higher-end hotel that they have to go up to 4 stories. That still is only 80 units. So it's an additional, whatever it is, maybe 20 units or so above what you would have with the other one. But it's a higher-end hotel. So what we've asked them to do, you want to bring up some of the examples of how they had shown, do we have the other examples?
What are you asking for?
Your,
No, I think that was in a separate piece.
Yeah, the 8 point.
It was in an email, yeah.
yeah, your example, yeah.
I can form it.
So they have a few different examples of how they would do these, and so we would work with them on. We don't really have control over design standards. The state of Texas has removed our ability to control that. So what we are doing is working with them to try and do something as appropriate as possible. Now, I will also tell you that. Oh, you got it in there?
Yeah, I was going to try to get my scale right. So what these are is examples of the 4 stories. So Hampton, as you're stating, it's a higher-end hotel, which means a higher room rate per night or per room. Hampton does not build 3-story product anymore. This particular developer, I think I've shared this with council, but I've dealt with in the past, as it happens, they actually did a product in Schulenburg, Texas, and in Flatonia, Texas, while it's there. In both instances, they built a lower-end hotel. That's mostly what this particular developer has done. It all has to do with timing of brands and brand expansion and what they can get and that sort of thing and what will be allowed. So they built a number of Best Western Pluses. Those are considered a lower tier hotel, lower room rate. So that's probably what they would build, frankly, if that was the option. But to your point, We've asked for a higher standard. The higher standard would be this Hampton Inn. The Hampton Inn, Hampton now requires it to be 4 stories. That's a corporate decision they're making. And that's why it required the PUD to go in and do a height variance. So the only reason...
Just for clarification, the photograph is a 5-story building, not a 4-story building.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
All right, that's okay.
Well, some of them, I looked at these, some of these are a little
There you go.
misleading.
Yeah.
Because they look like, over on this side, they look like there's 5 windows, but they're still only 4 stories. So in any case, and these are some of the more recent product. The only reason the PUD was applied for was to get that height variance, because really there's, you'd have to go to ZBOA. They'd have to meet the 7 standards. They do not meet those. And if the city was insisting that if you're going to build one, we'd like to see you build this. This was the means to get them there, was to do this PUD. So they've agreed and gone through that PUD process. It went through the public hearing, went to P&Z. It was approved through P&Z, and that's where we are tonight, is in that process. And I apologize if I still...
No, that's perfect. Thank you for the context there. Now, some of the things that we had heard during planning and zoning, there were concerns about the traffic, and I'll hit that one straight on. Putting another, with the size of that, you could put 3 or 4 fast food places. You probably get more, and I won't name the fast food places that are directly south of this on Highway 90. You probably get multiple times what you would get the volume of traffic out of those, out of a single hotel.
Yeah, so you think about it, 80 rooms, you're not going to turn over those rooms. They only turn over on a daily basis, if that, right? So you're at most 80 cars in that respect, whereas any fast food establishment, they have easily 100 plus. I mean, that you have to be doing 100 sales by noon to break even. That's generally just the parameter for profitability for a fast food franchise. So Sonic, you go get your receipt, and it's a little trick. If you get your receipt from Sonic, it'll tell you what number order you are any time of the day, how many they've done for that day. That's a real good idea of how many cars they're pushing through. And it also tells you how strong your economy is from a fast food standpoint.
And some of the other concerns were just the appropriateness of having a hotel. And the fact is that they could build a hotel, and we just want them to build something a little bit nicer.
I do have that picture, the one that you showed.
The one from
sent
Washington
me.
State?
Yeah, if you wanted me to share that.
It might confuse. We're asking them to do some design standards. Part of this is if they're willing to do this and how we can help them do that.
Well, this is, so to be clear, this is what Hampton will approve. They've already got, the Hampton architects, and we look at it that way, they've already got a model, and they take it to a developer and say, they sell them a franchise, and they say, okay, out of this franchise, you have these options to build our hotels. And so the options you're seeing here are the recent constructions, so the color tones, all the different attributes that you would expect from a hotel, those are all Hampton-approved designs. They're signature designs. Hampton has done other options, and I would say this is a, oh, great. Really? Yeah. Come on. All right, well, anyway.
Actually, if you right-click on it,
Yeah.
go back to that. Right-click, should be open
Open
with,
with, go up one. And only paint, that's all it gives you.
more apps. Try Internet Explorer.
Says the Microsoft guy. Oh, there you go. You're gonna look
Yeah,
at that.
just minimize it.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. You're taking over my computer.
Just minimize that one.
Okay.
Minimize it. There you go. Close it. There you go. Oh, minimize it.
Give me a second. No?
Who are these people?
Okay,
Microsoft?
there we
There we
go.
go.
So you can see that says Hampton, and I credit to the mayor for finding these. There's no guarantee that we can actually pull this off, so to speak, with this developer. The developer wants to do it. That's the good news. He's open to doing something like this. The real issue is whether or not the corporate office will approve it, that Hampton will. And I've already asked for how we make that happen. Do we do letters? Typically, the only way that Hampton does this is if it's in our ordinances already, if we require it.
I see.
That's how they justify it, if you want to look at it that way. Unfortunately, our ordinances are terrible
right.
in that respect, and we all know that. That's why we're having these efforts to change our UDO. So, I mean, this could be something that would improve it. It won't change, I mean, the actual height and everything else would basically be the same. What would change is how it looks. The skin, the color tone, some of the other things that might give it more of a Bavarian or Alsatian feel.
And I think that the word, I love this word, it was the vernacular architecture, because we have different types of vernacular architecture, but something that is less like, don't sorry, California, don't California my Castroville. It's doing something that's a little bit more quaint, a little bit more
But to your
unique.
point, we don't want to,
No.
we're not promising this is the outcome. It's just something that we're trying, it's an added level of architecture that we're trying to get approved. What they would naturally build is, or, what they will naturally approve is more like one of these. And you can see the architecture is basically the same, it's just the way it looks, it's the skin of it.
The skin.
Okay, so public comments. Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Actually, if you don't mind, step up here, state your name, your address.
Okay, Julie Sedlock, 121 Village Path.
I'm
Thanks.
sorry, you went too fast.
Julie Sedlock.
Sedlock?
One Sedlock, S-E-D-L-O-C-K, 121 Village Path. And I just don't understand how the city's going to support all of this traffic. I mean, if you've ever been on Highway 90, 8 o'clock, 5 o'clock, it's like a nightmare right now, and you're adding 950 homes, you're adding hotels. It's like, well, we have 2 lanes of traffic, that's it. I mean, it is what it is. You can't just keep adding people and adding businesses. And I mean, it's not even like a small town anymore. To me, it's like extension from San Antonio.
And the unfortunate thing is that is Texas law. We are not adding this. I've said this before. If I had the money to buy up all that farmland and just let it sit, I would do it in an instant. I am not in favor of the growth. I don't like the growth. I hate the traffic. That's one reason that we're working on a northern route. But we can't stop it. People have the right to buy. They have the right to sell. They have the right to develop, and we cannot stop them.
But even the traffic, I mean, I would think that would justify not adding any more.
There is nothing in the law that would allow us to keep somebody from building a home or building a business.
I don't
And
think-
trust me, I've looked.
I don't think we should worry about the speed limit because it's going to be bumper to bumper any time of the day.
I know.
I just don't understand. I mean, I talked to different residents and they're like, I'm going to get out of here. This is San Antonio.
Right.
All we did is, have a longer commute, but, it's just people are frustrated.
We're all with you. We feel the same pain, and we don't like it.
That's why we're working on the alternative routes.
Yeah. We're working on traffic plans. We are working with TxDOT. We are trying to minimize the impact. We can't stop it, but that's why we're working with every single person that comes in here to do any kind of development. We're trying to work with them to increase their design standards, to increase traffic flow. The amount of coordination that's gone in with the developers. If you look at, I'd done a presentation a few months ago about all of the land around here that is owned by developers or actively being marketed to developers, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres, and we are trying to maintain control where we have the ability to annex, where we have something to offer, so that we can control that. What's going to go out, I heard about another subdivision just on the Bexar County side, south of Highway 90, that's going to add another thousands of homes, and these are tiny, tiny, tiny homes, huge density, lots of traffic being dumped onto Highway 90 right on the Bexar County line. We have absolutely no control over that either.
Because I remember when we first moved out here like 20-something years ago, there was like a city ordinance, you couldn't even have a sign like for a business that was more than a few feet tall, and now it's like, things, you can build hotels and 3 or 4 or 5 stories. It's just going to mess up the whole view, the whole atmosphere.
And we had looked at
small town.
where, I agree with you, we're trying to keep this from being a suburb of San Antonio, and that's why we're talking about, it's not just the physical attributes, but it's the emotional attributes, it's the volunteerism, it's the getting together as a community, it's working together as a people and not losing our identity. And one of the things that we are looking at is sightlines. There should be nothing that blocks your view of St. Louis Church coming into town, and this doesn't. It is less of a footprint than Walmart is. Walmart is a pretty huge footprint, but again, we're trying to beautify wherever we can.
Yeah, I mean, it's just frustrating. A lot of
I know.
residents are complaining, and I'm like, when's it gonna stop? I mean, where do you end it? I mean, the traffic, we can hardly get out of our subdivision. People are going from 471, crossing through Village Path and coming out the other light. I
Right.
mean, it's just like a parade in the mornings.
All of your council people are feeling the same pain and hate it exactly as much. And that's why I think a lot of us are doing this, is because we care about shaping it. And we are working on, if you've seen the northern route, to reduce some of that traffic, because I think a lot of that traffic is coming through Country Village, coming from 471. And God forbid, somebody builds out on some of that acreage as you go north on 471, between here and Petranco. If they start putting, and they just put another small subdivision out there, but they start putting the big subdivisions out there, and you're going to see that even more. And so that's why we're trying to prepare for this. But that, I mean, the growth, we can have other discussions about the growth. This is just a part of what we're being faced with. So we're just trying to turn something as good as possible. If we could stop it, we would. But we can't. I know, trust me. Cool. Thank you for expressing that.
Sorry, but it's just very frustrating.
I know, I agree. Do we have somebody else that wanted to speak? I appreciate your participation.
David Mers, MERZ, 148 Village Path. I'd just like to preface with that one you showed, the 3-story one that looks like it belongs in Castroville. We are not going to get that if we give them this agreement right away. Once they have what they want, we don't have any power to negotiate anymore. I've spent over 10 hours in the last week knocking on doors and talking to my neighbors about this. I would have spent more over the last 2 weeks, but I was too sick to go to work for a week, so I wasn't going to knock on anyone else's doors and get them sick too. There are about 43 houses on Village Path, and I've talked to more than 35 of them. Only one person on the entire street opted out of signing the petition that I have been carrying door to door. I have copies for City Council. I don't know if you're allowed to accept them out of my hands.
I think so, right? Yep.
I only have 3 copies.
We can show, seriously.
But thanks to a few deputy signature gatherers, we have 87 people who live or work in Castroville who have signed this petition to stop this zoning change. We recognize that a hotel is allowed, but we think that that extra 15 feet is a big deal. Sorry, I'm just going to go back to my script. The trend is clear. The overwhelming majority of people we talk to who are willing to answer their door disagree with the idea of the zoning change, and they disagree with the idea of making concessions so that a developer will do what they want to do anyway. The vast majority of these 87 signers also live in the district that is currently represented by Harold Stein, and that's the district this hotel would be constructed in. And so I urge the City Council to put aside this issue for another night when the concerns of these petitioners can be more directly represented on the City Council. And if you don't have any direct questions for me, my wife was going to actually read the petition to you.
Did he make this presentation to P&Z?
No.
I have so I did talk to PNZ because we were notified. We were the only house close enough to this development to receive a notification from the city. And after it went to PNZ, I went back out to collect petitions. The PNZ approved this measure 2-to-1, and 2 members of the board were not able to be present that night. So it's not exactly a washout that PNZ was in favor of this.
Can I ask you a question really
Absolutely.
quickly? Because this is not a binary thing, and I just want to hit these things head on. We cannot tell them they cannot build a hotel.
I'm aware.
So would you rather us, and just, you don't have to speak on behalf of everybody. Nobody wants something that's going to add traffic. Nobody wants something that's going to be that massive, but they can build something that is slightly less. It would be less revenue to the city. It would be less of a quality construction. It would be less aesthetically pleasing, and they could build it without any kind of agreement from council.
I'm perfectly fine with a Best Western that I can't see over the businesses across the street.
They're one-story businesses. You'd still be able to see it.
Well, I'm the last house, so.
You could probably still see it. I mean, they can still build a three-story building that you would be able to see over those. I've driven around it to see kind of the scaling of it, and it would still be very prominent there behind those businesses.
But a 55-foot building would block the sun until 10 a.m.
The plan says 47.4 inches, but
Okay, well, they were,
Yeah.
that was not made present to me at the planning and zoning meeting. They just said they were requesting a height limit of 55 feet, so that's what I knew.
It's an additional 10 feet over what they're allowed to do.
But why just give it to them? That's my
Right.
mindset there. We have rules, everyone else is required to build inside those rules.
Right.
We're, as a city, not really gaining anything by giving them this extra 10 feet because it's what they want to do anyway. Why not, if we're going to negotiate away something that everyone else in the city has to live by, why not ask for something in return, which we're currently not doing?
That is not correct. So
We're just getting the building they want to build.
So in what they want to build, to Scott's point, is a lower end. So if you look at this kind of across the board, and I'm not trying to make excuses and I'm not trying to argue with you, I want to make sure that you understand what the implications of each direction are. So on one end, if you increase this, you add one floor onto here, so instead of three, that is, think about it in terms of property tax. And I could give you, I don't have actual numbers on me. In terms of property tax, it increases the property tax value of that by 25%. It increases the sales tax revenue by 25%. And so we talk about wanting more cops to patrol. We're talking about wanting better streets to drive on. These are the types of things that will allow us to be able to do that. And what you'll see, I mean, it seems like a really big thing right now. And, you know, I've said this before, I'm experiencing things, I live over right next door to the regional park, and as the park gets busier, as there's more people moving to the area, more people using it, to Devin's credit, he's been doing some really great programming over there. To my detriment, it's a lot busier and a lot noisier. But that is going to continue to happen. But if we have it uncontrolled, if we don't have any control over what's going through, and we just let them build whatever they want, then they're going to run right over us. And so what we're trying to do is something that is higher quality, and that's why we have been working with them to say, what can you do that's a higher quality? And the one minor thing that they asked for was 10 extra feet. 10 extra feet for 50% more revenue. Well, I guess it's 25 on both sides. That will give us some of the other stuff that we need, that will give us a nicer product. And if you think about the types of people that are going to be staying in here, I don't think that you're going to have trash that's staying in here, but you're going to have a higher level of folks that are living in there that are going to spend more money in town. And again, it's not all about the money, but it is also about the level of interaction, the types of cars versus trucks that will be parked in there. Would you rather have contractor trucks going in and out, or would you rather have small rental cars coming in and out? So these are all trade-offs.
Well, I think we addressed several of them in the back of or on the actual wording of the petition, which my wife is going to read.
Okay.
And
All right, let's let his wife speak first, if you don't mind.
The people who signed it, I made your points that you have made now and that you made at the zoning committee perfectly clear to them, and they still feel that they would rather have a smaller, potentially less nice hotel than a bigger, nicer one. So that's how we feel about it.
All right, thank you. We're going to let his wife speak first. She had already. Please also state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Samantha Mers, 148 Village Path. Y'all just kind of discussed a couple of these items, but I'm just going to read the petition as is, as we had it written. So zoning changes have been requested to enable the construction of 55-foot, four-story Hampton Inn at the end of Village Path. The zoning board has already voted in favor over the protest of citizens, and its recommendation will be presented to City Council on May 24th, 2022. We urge City Council to reject this request for the following reasons, among others. We recognize that the current zoning does permit a hotel. However, the current zoning has height limits of 40 feet and 3 stories. There are multiple hotels in Castroville that successfully operate within these limits. We see no reason why this development should require an exception, especially one that raises the limit by 37.5% to well over twice of the height of any nearby building. We do also recognize that a Hampton may generate more tax revenue than a lower quality or smaller hotel. However, a 4-story hotel would not be full of people visiting Castroville. We feel that any extra guests over a 2- or 3-story hotel would likely be visiting San Antonio or its Air Force Base, exacerbating our traffic problems. So to us, the small difference in tax revenue is not worth the extra cars on already crowded roads. We recognize that the proposed zoning allows the city to negotiate tighter requirements for the development. However, the city merely conceded a higher height limit and did not engage in any further negotiations that we know of. Mr. Dixon and Mr. Schroeder indicated at the zoning board meeting that the hotel's safety standards are already higher than the city's. This implies that the city has very little it wants from potential negotiations and therefore little to be gained by trading away the restrictions such as the height limit. We do recognize that preliminary plans have been checked by the county fire chief. The proposed fire suppression systems are better than the city would require otherwise. There are also plans to improve the water supply to the area during the Alsatian Oaks development. However, the Country Village neighborhood completely lost water pressure when Walmart filled its suppression tanks. The neighborhood does lose water access several days each winter and water pressure several more times per year. We are concerned about the fire suppression system during these all too frequent events before and even after the planned utility improvements. And lastly, we recognize that growth and development can't be stopped. However, we urge the City Council to please stop cutting deals with developers, listen to the concerns and desires of its constituents, and stop encouraging development that disagrees so harshly with the established character of our beloved city. Castroville can grow while remaining the beautiful, vibrant, and unique city we all love. We feel that cutting deals to ease the arrival of generic franchise buildings is giving up on our identity and not conserving it. So that was the petition that we had taken around over the last week.
Great. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak again?
I disagree with what she said.
Okay.
Just the very first one. And I live on that street, and if they hadn't informed us, I would have had no idea that a hotel was going on.
Well, and I'll encourage you again, if you look around, those have been commercial properties and they were up for sale. I saw that sign on there for quite some time. I would encourage you, get together with your neighbors. I mean, you're signing petitions, get together with your neighbors and invest in that other property, because if that sells, then there's going to be additional development there. There's going to be additional traffic because of it. That has always been zoned commercial for to my knowledge, since the zoning was in place, and people can build on that. The amount of traffic that you're going to get out of a hotel, I think that is, for traffic-wise, that's the best thing that could go in there, because it reduces the amount of traffic that would come through there significantly compared to what could go in there.
I think it messes up the landscape of the city too. I just think something all like that, as you get to the city, is just going to mess up the whole ambiance of the whole city.
And I think it's-
traffic on that street, we already have a subdivision coming in from Country Lane.
It's probably important to note, the warranty deed for the land that these people bought, they bought it 20 years ago. And in the deed, when they bought it, whoever sold it to them had a restriction that said, for a period of 20 years after the date of this instrument, the property shall not be used for a hotel or motel. So the previous owner, as part of the sale, was able to delay a hotel or motel by 20 years by putting it in the deed. So these people have waited. They invested their money 20 years ago, and now they're moving to make a profit on their money. So it's very important to note, you can't know the motive of every buyer for every commercial piece of property. And as the mayor pointed out, the city has very little latitude in controlling commercial property.
But if we do have height restrictions in place.
The mayor's already explained why the city has moved to make for a better hotel, a nicer looking hotel, higher quality hotel, in order for that extra number of feet. By making a putz.
Please, again, state your name and address.
I'm Jan Walter. I live at 132 Village Path. Been a resident there for 30 years. We've seen all kinds of development here, there, and yonder. I think we have become more populated in that area, and my main objection is we have school buses routinely up and down Country Lane and onto Village Path. The children, they're stopping out there, the children are getting off of the buses and walking in that area. We don't know who's going to be at this hotel. And we've got the apartments where there's a lot of children that come out and play. We've got the daycare, we've got a pediatric medical office. And all of that jeopardizes the safety of our children. And I have sat in your very seat. 20 years ago, I don't recall that we had an option to not tell someone that they could not build. But I feel like as a city, when we lose the ability to say, no, you're not going to do that, we're in big trouble. Bernie has done it, Comfort has done it, all of the little towns west of us have done that very thing. They wouldn't let McDonald's put their golden arches any higher than 6 feet. So, you know, they're looking at the landscape, and I think that we should do that as well. The landscape along with the traffic that pulls from Highway 90 onto Country Lane, with all the fast food, with the apartments, with the daycare, with the karate studio, with all of that is there. And I think that we are endangering our children that get out there and play.
Can you
A lot of people walk in the area routinely. I'm sorry. What was-
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please finish.
Oh, that's okay. People get out and walk in the streets, and increasing that is going to cause some problems, I fear. But as a city, when we can't, I'm not saying control, but when we can't monitor and have something to do with what's going on, we're in trouble. We're in trouble.
So you mentioned about the hotel. So if they put in a 3-story hotel that has whatever it is, 20 less rooms, 18, 15 less rooms, you still have the same traffic. You have, I don't want to equate quality with price, but it is a different price point. It is a different clientele. It is probably larger trucks. I've stayed in way too many hotels in my business travels, and I see the types of vehicles that go into the lower-end ones versus the higher-end ones, and they are substantially larger and I think less cautious, less careful.
Service vehicles.
Service vehicles, thank you. So you're
Well,
gonna,
yeah, and
they're going to build a hotel no matter what. And so
I
we're trying to get
understand.
a nicer quality of clientele, a nicer quality of hotel, more revenue for the city. When I say more revenue for the city, we're not money grubbers. We
Well,
personally
I
don't
don't feel
get
like
those.
we keep the hotel on the hill full. So this hotel could very well not have the clientele that they are expecting, number one. Number two, the Best Western over in Hondo usually has 2 or 3 cars in front of it. So it's not thriving, it's not doing well. We don't want a building that gets vacated in the next 5 years for transients and rodents or whatever. We want that to be something that is successful. And as a city, we need to help them make it successful. But we need to control the traffic and take care of our children.
So the other question is, if you had, do you acknowledge the fact that you're going to have a lot more traffic with a fast food restaurant, a very small fast food restaurant, than you would with a hotel? Does that make sense?
You mean in place of where the hotel is planning?
So there is a Church's Chicken, a Bush's Chicken, Pizza Hut. I don't think they've got as much
The
traffic.
Churches and a Bush's and a Sonic and a Pizza Hut,
Yeah.
all right there.
And I think that, you know, just between the ones, the multitude of chicken places that we have in town, I know. Yeah, and we don't bring those in either. They come in all by themselves.
Yes.
So the amount of traffic that they come through is substantially more. And they are coming out onto Country Village Drive. And even worse, they're coming out onto Highway 90 in mass volumes. So if they took this track, how many, this is 4.61 acres, they could put 5 fast food restaurants on here, which would increase the amount of traffic substantially.
And we wouldn't have anything to say about it?
Nope.
They could put a mini mall there.
But what I believe their plan would be is to put a lower-end hotel. And anything we're trying to do, when people are coming in, because Texas has completely removed our ability to control any of that. And I don't totally disagree with it, because if I'm a property owner and I want to sell my property, I believe I should have the right. If I want to sell my house, I should be able to sell it. If I want to buy a house, if I want to buy a property and I want to develop on it, this is the land of opportunity, and that is part of the the freedom that we have. And it's terrible when you're used to a small community without all of this stuff. It's terrible when you're dealing with growth, you're dealing with traffic, you're dealing with crime, you're dealing with all of the stuff that comes along with it, and the loss, I'm mourning the loss of the peaceful neighborhoods, but that happens no matter what. And so that's why we continue to work with folks just to increase, to elevate what they're doing. We're saying when they come in, great, you're doing that, let's do something better. Let's do something that is nicer, that has a higher chance of long-term success. For some people, they want to come in, like with the developers, what we're fighting is that they want to come in and make their money and get on out. And we're saying, we want you to do better because we have to live with this for decades and generations.
Do you feel that it's a lost cause to persuade them to put a 3-story unit there?
No, they will put it, if we don't approve this, they will put a 3-story unit that will be a lower quality.
Like a Best Western rather than
It could be a Best Western, it could be a
America's
Motel
Best.
6, it could be America's Best.
less than that?
They can put whatever they want on it. They could put anything. What did they call it? What was the hotel that was
The
where?
no-tail motel?
Well, it's all, I'm sorry, it's all dictated, it's like anything else, it's all dictated by which brands are expanding and which are available. So he'll put whatever's available, whatever brand's available. If there's a
I have
Best
nothing
Western,
against Hampton
yeah.
Inns. I've stayed there many times
Yeah.
in travel, so that's not the issue. Not the issue at all.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like this petition, they're opposed basically to the hotel, it appears, but I wish the vote could have been, would you want city council to allow the extra floor knowing it's going to be a higher quality hotel versus the 3-story? Because this is not something they just dreamed up. For 20 years now, they've been planning to do this. And I also travel a lot, and I know, especially the service vehicles, because they're trying to keep their costs down, that they have to pay for hotel rooms, whereas families traveling, and as the mayor said, rental cars, and it's, so as far as, and what you mentioned is the safety of the kids. It's, again, we don't want to equate quality of hotel versus clientele, but there's no doubt that there is a higher elevated quality of people that are going to spend additional money per night to stay in a Hampton Inn versus something not quite as nice. So really, the vote would have been great is, would you be willing to give up the 4th floor to have a quality hotel versus a less quality hotel at the 3? Because we can't, people are saying, I wish you guys would try to control things. We're trying to control things.
I understand.
And that's our only control we have right there is by giving up the floor, they've agreed to put in a higher quality hotel.
Thank you for
And
that.
that would be a great vote that I would like to.
I
wish we
appreciate
could have seen
that.
Well, and we do have ongoing efforts. We talked about the Uniform Development Ordinance. Our ordinances are, they're old. I won't call them terrible, but I would not call them good. There are a lot, I say that because I know some of the people that had originally worked on that. They worked really hard. It was citizens that put these ordinances together, and they have not progressed as far as they should to protect us. If you look at our ordinances, Castroville, as it stands right now, could not be built with our existing ordinances. And the things that people want to do, when people come in, we've talked to developers, and they're like, the ordinances really don't even make sense. They conflict with one another. They don't actually, they don't set a standard of quality, even within the rights that we do have. And so that's something that, this is something that we've walked into, and we are actively working on it. But these are all multi-year processes. And so in the meantime, we have to go through these exercises where we say, we'll do a planned use development where we can put some controls. So doing this as a planned use development, we have controls over the quality, we have controls over putting some other things in place to be able to ensure proper flow of traffic. It just gives us a lot more oversight so that we can choose exactly what that looks like. So this has been the accumulation of a lot of discussion, a lot of enhancement of quality.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure of that, and I appreciate your time. Thank
Cool.
you.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure that you know that they don't just show up and we just, check a box and say, all right, come on, run on over us, because we don't like getting run over. I don't like anybody running over us. Please stand up over here. We have people that are watching online that like to hear.
But why can't we negotiate with them and build the 3 levels and still have a quality hotel?
Because they
I
will
mean-
not do that, and they don't have to.
I mean, that's not part of the negotiations, but as far as the city?
If we deny this, then there are no more negotiations. They will build what they want.
Well, and I just want to, again, part of it's being driven by the brand. So, for instance, if Hampton allowed for the 3-story, I think we'd actually have that. So I don't think that's entirely accurate what you just stated. because
Thank you.
It's not that they want, I just want to be clear, because I've had plenty of conversations with the developer over the last, since January, basically. They'd be happy to build a 3-story. They are not the ones that want the 4-story. It comes down to which brands are expanding, and they basically gave the city options and said, well, these are the options that I have access to as a developer on this land. And Hampton is the highest and best option they have available to, and Hampton is the one that requires 4 stories. They are not allowing their partners to build 3-story hotels. You will see examples of them, I'm sure, elsewhere, but they are not being built now. They're not being allowed now. So that's really what's driving it. And I don't believe that we may have the ability to change or to get Hampton to agree to an improved skin or facade, but I don't know that we're going to be able to get them to agree to a 3-story. But that's not off the table as far as the city's concerned. I mean, that's something that we would lobby for if it were with our power to do so. Because I don't think there's anyone here that's saying, well, we need a 4-story and we need extra rooms. It's really about the room value and the quality of the hotel. So I just want to be clear. Again, even if we went back to them and said, here, it's like anything else from a franchise standpoint. It's what franchises are available right now in the market.
And this is not the end of the negotiations. We are still working with them on driving quality wherever possible. So there are still a couple more steps that we've got to go through to get agreements in place, and we will work as hard as we can to get it to that point where it is as high a quality as we can possibly put. Because this goes in once, and it's there for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
And I would rather have them put in something that is nice for the rest of my life, that doesn't get downtrodden, that doesn't have quality issues, construction issues. I want them, the thing that we know about Hampton, and I don't mean to give a commercial for them, but I've traveled and spent hundreds, if not thousands of nights in hotel rooms. Did not enjoy it, but I typically stayed at the Hamptons because they had the highest consistent quality over pretty much any of the other, the business brands. And so I have a very high confidence in their quality. I don't like their facade. That's a personal preference. I don't like having a hotel there at all. I don't like having other massive things covering up good farmland either.
Yeah.
So, all right, did we have more comments?
Just a quick correction to something Mr. King said, and I apologize if this was not made clear. This petition is against the additional height on the hotel. We know that we cannot stop a hotel. That's those first 2 points on there. We recognize that they have permission to build a hotel there. And then, the small difference in tax revenue from the extra floor. And I attempted to make that as clear as possible to everyone I talked to when I was out collecting signatures on this petition. I always made sure to say they already have the ability to build a hotel there. This is a question of additional height. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear and that you're not misunderstanding. what
It's
this
not
petition is.
totally clear, but I appreciate you make that distinction.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
In that, did you also make it clear to them that the reason for the extra height was to get a higher quality hotel?
Yes, I
So all these people are saying that they would sacrifice the quality of the hotel for the extra 10 feet?
yes, sir.
I honestly believe that they don't have all of the information with this. And I don't, I think that our responsibility, it is to individuals, but it is also to the collective. So we have a tough job. Everything that we do, I guarantee, is going to make somebody upset. And sometimes it makes us upset. I've had to make decisions that I didn't like personally, but they're for the greater good. And so it's a tough job to be able to do this. Is there any, I'm sorry, we need to close
I
that.
was just offering that because you said something that I felt was contrary, and I wanted to make
Oh,
sure
no, I
you
didn't,
understood.
I didn't disagree, but it was, the true question, the vote was, because the hotel's going there no matter what,
We
so that's
recognize
not the issue. The issue is, would you be willing to give up the 10 feet for the high-quality hotel, or leave it as it is for anything that could come in there.
And I
And that
attempted
was-
to make that as clear as possible to the people I was surveying, but I
Yeah.
obviously cannot guarantee that they all understood that.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Did anybody else want to speak? Thanks. Please remember, state your name and address.
Bradley Habe, 1075 Highway 90 East.
Thanks.
It's not really related to that, but from an emergency services perspective, do we have the capability of handling a structure fire in a 4-story as opposed to a 3-story? And if we
Yes.
if we don't, and we approve a 4-story, are we then having to go out and buy a $500,000 unit to handle a problem that we just created for ourselves?
No, so we did, and there's a letter in our packet from the ESD approving this. I think Scott's bringing that up right now. I did talk to Chief Cook about this, and because I was concerned about the same thing, and talking to Polly Edlund, we had talked about this before. They had looked at some of that for some other property that they had, and I'm like, I don't know if we can actually do that, because I think they need a ladder truck. And he said, no, he's familiar with the Hampton brand. The fire requirements that they have there satisfy the ESD needs, and Chief Cook has a ton of experience with this stuff, and he was completely comfortable with it.
Okay, good.
So we absolutely have gone through
That's been
to,
addressed, so
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
really my only concern, because it's not, I get the emotional piece that we've got going on here, and I empathize with it 100%, but looking at it from a pragmatic point of view, I mean, we are making some assumptions that a additional floor will give us 25% more revenue and all that, but that's under the assumption that it's fully, it's booked all the time, so.
not necessarily, because they usually have, they'll have a fill rate.
True.
The ground floor, it has no rooms on it. The second and third and fourth floor have rooms, so the additional floor is a 50% increase in rooms for
Okay.
this hotel.
All right, okay. Well, that was my only question about the infrastructure, if we weren't setting ourselves up for a future problem.
Great question, thank you, I appreciate that. I appreciate you looking out for this.
Yeah, that's me.
Cool,
There it
thanks.
is.
All right, anybody else?
Sorry.
All right.
A lot of flipping, but I finally found it.
All right, so we're going to close the public hearing at 6:56. Next item is discussion and take appropriate action on a request for a planned unit development request for approximately 4.211 acres located to the property east of intersection of Country Lane and Meadow Drive for a Hampton Inn Hotel. I am going to go out on a limb, and understanding that I represent the people of Castroville, I do believe that this is the best option that we have, is encouraging something that is a higher quality unit that we have actually some control over versus a lower quality unit that is completely outside of our hands. I would entertain a motion right now.
Can I just interject real quick? So as a council, you've been handed a petition. I want to make sure that if any of the council members have a question about that petition, the legality of it, how it gets treated, what legal stance it has in this matter, I would think it prudent to maybe answer that question, if you have that question in your mind.
I don't have a question about the petition, but I'd like some discussion. If you
Absolutely.
want to make a motion first, you can do that.
We can have discussion first, we can have a motion first.
Yes, either way.
I'd like to point out, I was approached by Kyle McVeigh before this meeting. For those of you that may not know, she's a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. She is the person who voted against this when the Planning and Zoning Commission took it up. The other 2 members voted for it. There was only 3 members present. I told her I would make that known in the meeting, and she expressed her concerns about that, same as some of the speakers pointed out. Now, speaking for myself, I have read this package very, very thoroughly. There's a lot of work behind this. I mean, we're being asked to make this into a planned unit development instead of just letting it go commercial. So we get control. And as a result of that, we're going to get a much better product that's going to be better for the city in the long run. So I support this move. because there's very little we can do to stop it. And if we don't approve the request for the planned unit development, we don't know what we're going to get. Could be a Motel 6 or a Motel 3.5. But we know what we're going to get if we approve the planned unit development. We're going to get an upscale, nice-looking hotel, and we have some leverage to try to make it fit into our town architecturally. We'll exert that leverage, and we hope for the best.
And again, even though they've submitted the PUD, this body has the ability to make revisions to that PUD. For instance, if they were able to get a 3-story approved through Hampton, and that were the desire of the council, you'd still have that ability to do that. I'm not saying that that's something that can happen, but we know that there are examples out there that are prior examples, and I think you're going to do your best, right?
We're going to have to rezone this next, so I mean, these two items are going to go hand in glove, but I support the public, or the PUD request, because I think it's the best course of action for the city.
Great. More discussion, or do I have a motion?
I would like to just say something. I've been resisting. I don't like telling people, the reason I'm here is because I don't like telling people what to do with their property. I joined this council, I ran for this seat because I opposed some of the things, some of the ordinances that were being passed at that time. I myself have had a personal experience. I planned something for 10 years. I saved money, I saved materials, and last year I gave it up because it didn't meet our ordinances. These people have been planning this for 20 years. I'm looking at the subdivision plat in front of me, and it has a date of October 27, 2003 is when they replatted the 2 lots on Country Lane and the 3.57 acres behind it. And this has been in somebody's mind and somebody's efforts for 2 decades. It's going to happen. And I agree with what I just heard, was that if we take this path today, we actually have some control over what goes on there. And if we don't take this path today, Motel 6 would be probably what we'll be looking at.
Great.
Now, and we point out on this that the chief for the county has given the okay, but we also, for those of you watching and everything that have planes and what have you, it is approved by the FAA as well. It doesn't interfere with the glide path. But that'll bring people that fly into the airport will have a reason, someplace to stay, because at the hotel up on the hill, when hunting season comes, that place is packed. And so this would give more room for the hunters that come and all that. So it's a good thing. And like you said, we have the control of saying, all right, it has to be, we prefer this decorum and that. So we do have some control, but otherwise, you know, people have the right to do with what their land, as long as it's zoned right.
All right, thank you.
You know, it's all everybody tells us up here, and it's hard sitting up here, but can you not control growth? And, you know, can you not, and I'm the same way. You know, if I could control growth, you know, you couldn't come through Catchville. I mean, you know, in just a short time, 10 years ago, you could walk across 90, no problem at all. Now, you can't stop it. That's the problem. But this is a PUD request. It's a planned unit development. We have no say what goes on that piece of property right now. We can't stop it. They could put another vape shop there, for instance. They can't stop it. You know, you could put a high-density little mini-mart there. You could do, and we've all seen these in different neighborhoods and everything. But all of a sudden here, you know, we have this opportunity for a planned development. We can control what goes there. And what they proposed is a fairly high-quality hotel, Hampton Inn. So we could say, if we vote this down, then it's up to them. You know, there's no plan, there's no control. It just goes, whatever it is. So by allowing them to have the 4th floor, by what Scott says, this is what Hampton, their corporate office is saying. because I don't even look at the tax revenue or anything else. I'm simply looking at what's a better, would I prefer, if I'm in that neighborhood and those houses and all the other arguments that brought up, would I prefer something uncontrolled, or I would prefer something I can control by simply allowing to have a 4-story? You're going to see the hotel anyway. I'm sorry, you're going to see it. I live right across the street from the new Dollar Tree, and I realized that when I moved in, and I know I'm rambling, not sorry, but I kind of believe that the fact that, and I see all these names on this petition, there's a lot of them, and a lot of people live in that neighborhood, I understand that. But if the question was really asked, would you prefer to have a planned development where we can control what goes in there, control the quality of what's going in there, or simply open it up and say they can put anything in there they want to? I would think that the citizens in that area would prefer a planned development.
Can we table it until all the...
I'm sorry, the public discussion.
Are we able to table it for now until all of the individuals are asked that question instead of assuming that people would want it to be another story?
We could, and this is the tough thing about this, and I'm taking us out of proper procedure by having this discussion with you. So just letting you know, this is not typical to have this kind of conversation afterward, but I want to make sure that we address that. We could go through this for a very long time and try and talk with everybody and educate people. We spend a lot of time looking at this type of thing. We spend a ton of time, more than I would care to admit, in looking through these and trying to figure out the highest and best use. And sometimes, being a representative democracy, we have to look at what we truly believe is best. I will tell you for a fact that every person on this council cares about this city. More than probably a lot of the citizens care about it. We care about this. That's why we volunteer our time. That's why we volunteer our effort. I know that we all spend, I'm speaking for myself, we all spend time out in the community talking to folks. I take calls all hours of the night, much to my wife's chagrin, because I do care about the people that we're representing. But sometimes we do have to represent and go through all of the stuff. And if everybody wanted to spend the dozens and dozens and dozens of hours to go through this, they would most likely come up with the same conclusion. So sometimes we do have to make those decisions on behalf of other people. So with that, do I have a motion on this?
I move we approve the planned unit development request for approximately 4.211 acres located at the property east of intersection of Country Lane and Meadow Drive for a Hampton Inn hotel.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I'm sorry, I know that this is tough. Please do reach out to your council members, reach out to me. I think that any of you that have called me know that I will answer my phone, and so will your council members. We'll continue to work through this. Please do partner up with us. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, I do want to address one point.
Thank you.
That Scott brought up regarding the petition. So the first point is that the petition in and of itself is not a petition that the city would have been able to entertain this evening. And the secondary, even if it did entertain the petition, the fact that the vote is at this point 4-0 means that this, even if the city accepted the petition, means that the city crossed the threshold burden of a 2/3 vote in favor of, over the petition.
Great. All right, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
A question on clarification. It couldn't be, you said it couldn't be accepted anyway.
That's correct.
Okay. And why is that?
Simply because, one, it was not proposed in the correct format. It was not proposed in performance with the rules of the local government code, and primarily because petitions must be presented with enough time to ascertain if the signatures are 20% of the notified landowners. And what I can tell you is just from the number of signatures, that may or may not be true, but we have no way of knowing because the petition was presented today during council meeting.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next item is public hearing on a zone change request for approximately 4.211 acres located east of the intersection of Country Lane and Meadow Drive. The current zoning of the property is C-H, East Commercial District. The proposed zoning for the property is P-D, Planned Development District. I'm going to open up the public hearing at 7:10. Do we have anybody that wants to speak for citizens' comments? All right. And with that, I will close the public hearing at 7:11. Next item is discussion and take appropriate action on a zone change request for approximately 4.211 acres located east of the intersection at Country Lane and Meadow Drive. The current zoning the current zoning of the property is C-H, East Commercial District. The proposed zoning for the property is P-D, Planned Development District. And I think that the motion on this would be to approve as described. Is there discussion on this? Sure. I just did on the other one, 7:11.
Sorry.
So this is the formality. We've approved the planned use development. This is the formality of changing the actual zoning in that location from the C-H, which is in the red, to a P-D, which I don't even know what color that is.
P-D is planned development.
I don't know what color it is. It's not on the,
Yeah. It'll be
Okay.
So this is,
This-
because we voted to approve the planned use development, now we're officially.
changing the
We're
zoning.
changing the zoning as well, yes.
Right.
I will move that we approve the zoning change of the 4.211 acres located east of the intersection of Country Lane and Meadow Drive from the current zoning of CH East Commercial District to PD for Planned Development District.
Mayor, again, if I could just interject, if we could, because there is the potential for other planned developments within the city, if we could somehow denote this one, PD number 2, PD number 3,
For tracking purposes.
for tracking purposes.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you and tell you what that is, because I don't know what number that would
I
be.
can
Say-
amend the motion to include the
Yeah,
appropriate,
PD Hampton, that-
Yeah,
yeah,
PD Hampton.
PD Hampton.
to be hereby known as PD Hampton.
All right. I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Motion by Councilman Carey, second by Councilman Dyer. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item is public hearing on a zone change request for approximately 7.33 acres located south of Highway 90 East and east of Security State Bank. The current zoning of the property is R-A, Single Family Dwelling District. The proposed zoning for the property is C-H, East Commercial District. We're going to open the public hearing at 7:13. So context on this, with the original agreement with Security State Bank, there was an agreement that within, I think it was within a certain period, I think it was 12 months, that they would then be annexed into the city and zoned commercial. And is that the one that we're talking about here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think it was supposed to be within there, and so they called us up there like, hey, weren't we supposed to do this? And it was a couple of years. So, Scott, do you have more context on that?
No, I think you covered it. I was just going to try and pull up a map so you can see where that is.
That's it.
You don't know why, what? Yeah, because you had it outlined. So isn't this the
That's the
bank
bank.
right
That's
here?
the
bank.
And this is the excess property that
Yeah.
would be zoned.
Got the veterinary clinic on the left side and the trailer park on the right.
No, that's, yeah,
I
that's.
believe when they originally
So
built the bank, they wanted to wait on the zoning for the other property.
by requesting and granting, this is meeting the agreement that was agreed to in the year that you mentioned.
I don't remember what it was, yeah. All right. Did we have anybody that wanted to speak for that? Please. Please remember to state your name and address.
Olana Taylor, 127 Village Path. My only
Thanks, Alana.
question is, you're going to CH on this commercial property. Can you start with it as the Plan Developed District?
It's not what
Or do you have to have a business coming in before you can zone it that?
That's a great question. I
That
don't know
is
the
a
answer.
great
When
question.
it gets annexed, it's automatically residential.
Right.
And
And
now we
what,
want to change it from residential to
And
commercial.
what she-
No, what she's asking though is a great question.
Yeah.
The simple answer is yes, with enough planning, forethought, and time.
except,
Our current zoning map doesn't have it on there, so we'd have to follow our current zoning map. We already have an agreement in place that says we will accept it as commercial. But there is, just as you just saw, there's every opportunity that when this land develops, that it could develop as a planned development, rather than, and we really do try to encourage that. A lot of the new development that you see taking place in the city is being done under a development agreement for that very reason, because it gives the city greater control, and it gives us the ability to provide some incentives to the developer to bring them to the table, and then it gives us the ability to provide greater control. That's an excellent question.
That's why I was wondering why.
Yeah,
you
we
couldn't-
can't do it tonight, unfortunately, because of the agreement, because of our zoning map, because of a lot of different reasons, but it is not precluded from happening in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
and just so that you're aware, I think we addressed this, but as much as possible, we want to make sure that we are working with the folks that are coming in here to encourage higher quality, attention to the traffic is a huge thing, attention to all the details that we know that are important.
So when it becomes, when someone wants to develop, you can put it to one that you have to have planning developed?
We can
Yeah.
encourage it. We can't make them do it.
Okay.
We can encourage it, and that's kind of what happened here with this last one we did.
Okay.
We encouraged it, they took us up on it, and then we.
Thank you.
Yeah, criticized.
But yeah, we do spend a lot of time working with them to make sure that we understand what's coming on so that we can. And there are some people that will just develop, if you look at the banks that were put in, they were put in very nicely and there was no interaction needed with that. Some of the other ones probably could have used a little bit more interaction. There's a great big box that's sitting out on Highway 90 that could have used a little more interaction, but you can only start from where you are. All right. Any other questions, comments for public hearing? All right, we're going to close the public hearing at 7:17. Next item is discussion and take appropriate action on a zone change request for approximately 7.33 acres located south of Highway 90 East and east of Security State Bank. The current zoning of the property is R-A, Single Family Dwelling District. The proposed zoning for the property is C-E, East Commercial District.
C-H, sorry.
Pardon me?
Isn't it C-H? Yes.
C-, is that what I said, C-H?
Yeah, E. You said E.
Oh, thank you, C-H.
I'd like to make a motion as read.
And
All
I'll
right.
second.
So I have a motion by Councilman King, a second by Councilman Carey. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item is discussion and acceptance of a petition for annexation of 9.230 acres, Castroville, Medina County, Texas, being 8.730 acres out of Survey Number 8, Abstract 1316, Edward, how do you pronounce that, Bingeno?
Bingeno.
Bingeno. And 0.500 out of Survey Number 97, Abstract number 1259, LM Collard, being a portion of Lot 1 of the Magnolia subdivision.
So it was pointed out by our attorney that the form that was used is the incorrect form, correct?
Oops.
That was a weird way to ask that question. So, and I don't believe we've got, I know I didn't reach out to the developer, to Jack Upmore, to get him to sign a new one. Did you perhaps reach out to him by any chance? So we still need to do that as staff, to get them to sign a new one. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that what you're approving is not correct as to form, and we need to get that updated by the developer. So can they take action, or do we need to wait until we have the form in hand?
I would recommend that we wait until we have the correct form.
All right,
So there you go.
great. All right, so we will not address that one. We'll put that on the next council meeting. Next item is discussion and appropriate action on approving the purchase and construction of a new park/streets metal building.
So you have This is in your packet, description of kind of what we're thinking. There has been some feedback about the regional park. I know I've heard from several of you, and certainly from a number of people that care a lot about our park, and most of whom volunteer many, many hours cleaning up the park, that they'd like to see our operations side of the parks and streets be moved from within the park to somewhere else, anywhere else, pretty much. The city does have property near the wastewater treatment plant that is underutilized. We have been given a grant. It's not been made official yet, but we've been awarded a grant for an incinerator. Part of that property is undesirable simply because that's where we dispose of all of our roadkill and dead animals, and so it makes it an unpleasant place to be. So the incinerator will change some of that for us. It'll provide us the ability to do more in that area. So that's what the staff is proposing, is constructing a new metal building on top of the hill above the wastewater treatment plant, near where the existing animal control facility is. And again, I've outlined the cost. We estimate that cost to be around $41,000. There is some unexpended funds, about $22,000, that were appropriated for the animal control facility. We have some more work to do there, probably another $2,000 to $3,000 worth of concrete work, and that's all that remains at the animal control facility. Of course, there are other uses these funds can be used for by animal control, potentially, but there aren't any additional uses that have been approved by council. So I don't know if you have any questions for me about what we're proposing, what we're trying to do. I don't think this is the last thing that we build up there, frankly. I think that there'd be the opportunity to expand with other metal buildings in the future, more places to put our equipment, et cetera. One of the things I've discussed is combining animal control and code enforcement as the city grows. I would encourage training by both those parties and probably some of the members of parks in order to help us with animal control, because I expect that there's going to be greater need down the road. So all of those things, like I said, I don't think this will be the last request that you see from us as far as things that we can do up there, but it would be the one that would allow us to initially move all the operations that are taking place in the park up to the top of that hill.
So, and on this, we need to make sure that we're, especially as we're looking at doing something with the settlement ponds up there, the more, we don't want to stick a bunch of junk up there that it then becomes prime location up on the hill. So we just need to be really careful of that.
Yeah, this would go, so
Goes
where
back
we're,
in the back, though.
understood, yeah, understood. This goes in an area that is not open to the public. It's already part of the wastewater treatment plant, and would not. That's a good point. I'll say, because you're going to close the two ponds, and could you suddenly have and create some access up there for the public that isn't currently accessible? Because it's all behind a fence today, and we've not had any discussion about doing that. But if you were to take this step, you wouldn't make that available. I can bring it up on a map if that's helpful.
I think that'd be beneficial.
Yeah, because I was going to ask where you all came to site.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I don't like, honestly, as much as I appreciate what Devin and the Parks has done for the park, the one thing I don't appreciate, even though they've been doing a ton of work on it, just the placement of all of the vehicles being right there at the entrance, I think it really takes away from it. So I like the idea of getting it off to a different location.
So currently, this is, I don't want to misspeak, there's a fence that runs here. I'm not sure that this is actually fenced in, honestly, but this is where our carcasses and whatnot are kept.
Our what?
Carcasses, where the dead
And this
animals are.
roadkill.
That's where the disposal is actually right here. Our current animal control facility, this is all part of the wastewater treatment plant. This is actually a drying bed area where they dry out the sludge. And then this is the animal control facility. Vice versa? It's animal control here and then there? Okay, I'm sorry, I had those reversed. I thought it was down the hill. All right, I had those reversed. So this is animal control and this is the drying area? Okay. I remember that exactly opposite, but okay. So this is the area that's been improved. This doesn't look like this today. This is an older photo. There's a new shed that is next to this, and this has been fenced in. so that when the idea being, it's got a gate on it, the idea being when he brings in a dog, he's able to unload that dog and not worry about it heading for the hills, which has been an issue in the past. So where the new building would go, Devin, I assume it's up in this area, correct?
It's down, it's literally across the yard from.
So right here?
Outside of the fence.
Oh, outside the fence.
So where that equipment meets right there, yeah,
Mhm.
right, there's a power pole right there, and that area
This is
right
a power
there
pole.
is built up just debris over the
Right here?
years. So it's a very small footprint. I included a.
Yeah, there's.
You may have.
Yeah. So it would basically be its own perimeter. You'd attach it to the fence and close the area on the doors.
No, there's not.
Yeah, that
That's the
one.
next
There we go.
agenda item. So I don't see a map.
Oh, not a map, no.
No, there's not a map.
This is just the building information. So
But it would go,
you're saying it'd go right here?
Oh, you got a map.
Yeah,
She
I got a map.
The printed people got maps.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's not my
Right
packet.
right there. Yeah.
Okay, great.
the intent is to extend the fence then around the building? Okay.
Or
And-
utilize the building to not, to be a border access, or a border to the
Yeah,
fence.
so you wouldn't, so you'd probably take the fence down, put the building
guess
here.
you
You
might
wouldn't
have
put a fence around the back of it necessarily, because the building would act as a fence. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
You mentioned that that's where people been pushing fill over out in that area?
Just from what I had collected from the guys, is just over the years, we had stuck, that whole area, it's quite level in some before the tree line hits. But the areas around there, they've made their own little drainage areas and different things like that. But upon talking to the wastewater treatment plant employees who work up there all the time and been there for quite a long time, that was a good recommendation on location.
One thing from an engineering standpoint is that if that's not select compacted material when you build a building on it, you are, because you're adding weight to it, you're gonna get differential
Failure.
settlement and distress to the building. So,
We're open to suggestions. If you've got other places you'd like to see the building.
well, and another question, why is this enclosed and not open like the current public works yard where they keep their equipment?
Well,
It's partially open and partially closed, right?
this whole
The
one
picture
is,
shows all of
we took away the covered area, or
Okay.
the open but covered area. This was my personal preference due to the fact that we have had issues up there in the past because it is out of sight, out of mind, that people took it upon themselves to mess with equipment. A few council meetings ago, former councilman, Mr. Shearhart, had brought forth, we need to protect our equipment, we need to make sure that everything is enclosed and, isn't exposed to the
Well, what he had heard him mention, of course, he ran bus barns for the school district, but he said the most important thing is to cover it, but not, he was actually saying not.
Yeah, I mean, we can build something like that, but with the history back there, I mean,
Well, the
putting,
reason I say that is that this building's gonna have differential settlement, the less walls, the better. The first thing is, I really think we should have someone do a geotechnical study there, because if it's 10 or 20 feet of loose material, you can have substantial differential settlement.
Sure.
And I think that's one thing, because I assume this is gonna be a permanent structure and not just something temporary.
I think all metal buildings are temporary, but that's my view.
And the other thing is, and again, I took this off top because that's what he said that night. And then you look, well, that's what my public works yard is it's easier to move things in. And that's why I was asking about putting a fence around it. It's all secured from a fence standpoint. I mean, if people are getting through the fence and into the sewage treatment plant, then that's a problem on its own.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. So we installed cameras, they're just, our security up there is not great, and when we make the improvements to the dams, that'll be one of the items that will be addressed. Is how do we put
Personally, by the way, I am for moving that equipment up there. I think it just needs to be studied a little bit more about how to build a building and what's the best utilization of the building.
And the soil sampling, yes.
Do y'all have any idea, do you have any feedback for us about location? I mean, Like I said, there's, I think there's several
What's the big
areas.
grass area there?
What's this?
The grass area in the thing in the middle of the paved
This
area.
right here?
Yeah.
It's just a turnaround spot that
Is that- I don't
they
think that's
created an
actually
area around.
But if you were to put your building there and it was open, then people could still use it as a turnaround area and you could park your I mean, if it's just a turnaround area and people going around it,
It's also probably
that would be a great
compacted.
place to put your equipment, I mean, your equipment building right in the middle of that, and that way people can still use it as that drive-around area.
Yeah, with the years of traffic, it's also been compacted.
Yeah, probably far less likely to be a problem. And based on your photo, it looks like it would only take a small portion of that turnaround area.
And
And
have
What's
draw
the
doors
size
on
of the
both
building?
sides.
1690?
16 by 90?
No, it's
No.
65
65
by
by 26.
26.
Yeah, because then you have draw doors on both sides that can pull in and then open them and come out.
And I'm even saying, you don't even just put a roof on it, and that way you could actually have a larger building for the same cost and give you more opportunity. And I'm not, I realize you want a small, an enclosed because you're pushing a.
That's 70 feet.
Yeah.
My biggest concern, honestly, is I've heard of,
Sure found that, I was moving.
Oh, sorry.
I have definitely heard of folks that go up there and do nefarious deeds. So I think that if you're not comfortable with the security of the equipment, I think I lock my stuff up.
You know what?
I would lock my stuff up. If you don't have somebody that can full-time monitor that, we don't want to tie up our cops with spending time up there, and if we don't have the,
Security measures.
Yeah, technically it's supposed to be a secured area from the DCEQ standpoint.
Right.
And if we're having people run through that area doing stuff, then that's a bigger problem than. But now that's bigger than the little drawing that we're being shown on the.
well, so you've got,
Oh, look, you did.
it says 90, is that 99.34?
Yeah, but that's, I was trying to
That's
get,
total
this is
distance.
70 feet, so
So it's 50.
if you move that back to whatever it was here, let me just,
Oh, gotcha.
let me just clear measurement.
That's weird.
Tina, you got your picture again?
Yep.
Yeah, they had a much smaller footprint on that image.
So this is 50,
That's about a fourth of the size of that building.
that's 60 feet.
I'm guessing the one on the drawing is not to scale.
Yeah. 'cause there's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that not scale?
They're 65.
Well, it's Google Earth, just like he's using. I can't compare it versus what you have.
So that's what it's saying would be, just that L shape, that would be the length and the width of the proposed building.
Oh, so if you put that on where you're currently planning to put it, it's gonna be.
Way
You see
out.
that picture I just handed you?
Yeah. I know, I saw it briefly when someone showed it over there.
That'd even be a bigger, so it's actually comparable in size to the animal control building now.
So I think that in the interest of time, maybe what we do is give direction to find, I think in concept, we're in approval, or we're in agreement with moving it from down at the entrance of the park up to a less visible but still functional area. So maybe it's direction for them to take a look at it and
Who's your parks
Can I ask
liaison
another
now?
question?
thanks.
If you're going to drive these vehicles every day up there, is the traffic going to have to cross over the spillways and other parts of the water treatment plant that are going to cause vibration damage or a speed up of the deterioration that we already discussed exists? Is there a risk for that with adding all these vehicles going up and down that road every day?
I'll ask the engineer. I don't know.
Just
No.
my question. Okay.
And by the way, Herb, that pond right there, what we've been talking about is that they're actually gonna fill in that pond or drain it. But you're still gonna have traffic get up there. If you have to have traffic.
Yeah, the
get
road's
up
going to
there-
be here either way.
And actually, you all are parking the vehicles up there over the weekend anyway, aren't you? Or not? I thought some time ago you had mentioned that you were parking some of the vehicles up there instead of down by the park. So you've never parked your vehicles?
No, we've never
Okay.
have been given access to that.
What I would ask, just because, just in light of the fact that material costs are going up, every time we ask for a bid, we get told that it's only good for a certain amount of time. what I would like to ask for is approval of a amount not to exceed, if y'all are in favor of this item. And then, Mayor, what I would suggest is that you appoint the Parks Liaison Committee member or anybody else that you feel, no more than 2 council members to advise the city staff on the location, any of the other parameters that we need to decide on, whether we're going to do a whether we're going to have a soil sample, where it's going to go, all that stuff.
I have one last question.
Yep.
If this is where employees will be accessing their work vehicles, or are we going to have adequate parking for personal vehicles in the vicinity? Okay.
There's a large area over there. One thing also to note is currently our shop size is about 200 feet. These guys are the ones who build all of our benches and stuff like that, so we utilize that indoor space quite regularly. Also for maintenance, so that the guys don't have to do maintenance on gravel. So the area just won't be indoor for that reason. So if we do change the scope at all, just maybe a little bit of the indoor space helps for the guys, since we will be trying to take the operation fully from down on the bottom part of the park up. I just don't want to end up having it where we build something and we still have to use that and have this continuous issue.
Agreed.
Right.
In a comment to that, the reason, and I like Herb, in Public Works, is you don't have to concrete the bays if they're open bays. So that's going to save quite a bit of construction out there. Again, you're also going to have to build paving for the other vehicles, but I think we really need to see a plan. I'm not saying not enclose a part of it. You could have, again, a maintenance bay.
I think Phil's volunteering for the committee, sir.
Yeah, I think that the motion would be to approve the purchase of the building and have our Parks Liaison, our new Parks Liaison, Herb Dyer, and Councilman King as our 2 liaisons to work through the details.
If they're willing. I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Motion? Sure.
I got.
You have a question?
Yeah. Regarding the funding that you and I talked about.
Yep.
Making sure Blue has everything he needs before we take, because with this city growing, he's having to do more and not enough equipment. So I just want to make sure Blue's squared away.
I just want y'all to be careful. Don't ever give anybody a blank check. If you say everything someone needs, they still got to, I have told them, show me a proposal. I honestly have no idea. There's a trapping mechanism he wanted to get. I don't know what it costs. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know why it would make our operation better necessarily. I want to see all of that.
Trapping a skunk.
Right.
$100.
I mean, but I just want to make sure he's squared away and got what he needs before we
Understood.
slide money away from.
We're also leveraging EMC to help us look for some animal control grants, because that is one area. There are people who are very passionate about animals, and there's a lot of money out there that we can get that. And that's not this item, so I'll shut up.
Okay.
I got to look. No.
All right. So then do I have more discussion or a motion?
I move that we approve an amount not to exceed $41,000 for the purchase and construction of a new Parks and Streets metal building, and that Councilman Dyer and Councilman King will work with the city staff to complete the final design and location.
Great. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. I have a motion by Councilman Dyer, second by Councilman King. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks, Devin.
Thanks, Devin.
Thank you, Devin.
Thanks for cleaning that up.
Good night.
Good night. Next item is discussion and possible action on improvements to Country Village drainage channel.
So,
You may take it.
yes, please. I'll just state that I put some items in the council's packet for your kind of edification on where we've at. Just to remind you, I think it was in October 26th is when we approved going out for bid. It's not gone out for bid, and there's a lot of reasons why. But
Can you put that aerial map, like your Google Earth map up there, so
Yes, sir.
everybody can kind of see what we're talking about?
don't follow my cursor, it'll make you dizzy. So, this is, I'm starting here behind the Walmart. This is a drainage channel It runs kind of, it eventually goes to Flat Creek. It runs along the back of, and this was some of it was done when the Walmart was put in. I believe this section was done then. But the rest of this section, if I'm not mistaken, was done as part of the 2002, 2003 improvements. So the channel's about 20 years old.
Is
that right?
Put in when Country Village was originally put in.
That's possible. That's probably about, in that,
No, it's over in the 90s.
in the 90s?
Yeah.
So 30 years, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's about 30 years old. So it continues behind, you can see Village Path there, behind Country Village and around to this corner. There's a farmer's field, kind of a road that comes this way and empties into that drainage. The new subdivision, which obviously is not visible in this Google map, is right here in this whole area. And there's an expanded subdivision plan, future subdivision expansion in this area, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yes.
And part of this is, you want to show that road, that the Haiti Road? Behind, right?
Yeah. So that's right here, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
where it crosses, and so the city has an easement, and that's a concrete low water crossing.
right here.
And then if you, so if you look upstream of this, a little bit farther up, right, where's that, is that the road?
Yeah. This is the country lane.
That's where the
Okay.
new bridge is.
That's where the new bridge is, and there is a picture so just several, 20 feet, 30 feet down south, or downstream of that.
The other way.
The other way. Yeah, right in that area, that's where the water's puddling up, right?
Yeah, it's actually right here. There's
Right
a huge
there.
puddle right here, and there's a pretty good sized puddle right here. It's on both sides of
And
that
the reason
bridge.
is that the new Country Village unit empties water in several feet lower than the current channel, the bottom of the channel. With anticipation that that channel would probably be improved in the future, and the more you can drop water out of a neighborhood, the better for everybody. I mean, the more water drops, the faster it flows. Okay, so this came up, if we improve the whole channel now, and when they put in the new Country Village unit, that particular engineering firm did a study on what the impact of that new unit would have on the channel. And the impact is it has no effect on the channel. And it has to do when things are, when rain falls, and I know you have your hand up, but I don't think you can't. It's
Okay,
city
so they're
council.
sitting open for public discussion.
Okay, so what this is that, so, and of course, the city's engineering at the time was K-Freeze, Michael Stein, and the city asked them to review the design documents from the developer's engineering firm, which at the time was,
It's PGE now, but.
yeah, but it was, but anyway, so they all agreed that yes, based on the calculations, based on everything, that unit doesn't have anything. It doesn't impact the flow into the channel. But now, so I asked Michael Persine with K-Freeze, because Scott asked me to get involved in this. And this area is also under design for drainage, just like Darren, the mayor, had mentioned that this drainage study that's going on across town. So this is also one of those areas that K-Freeze is trying to prioritize to discern, okay, where are the 5 major problems in town? And this isn't one of the 5 major areas, because there aren't just 5 areas. There's areas of flooding, of rainwater drainage all across our city. And so that was the discussion he had done earlier. So one thing is, if we come in here and drop this channel down, where it goes over the concrete low water crossing, because the channel would be deeper there, then you would have to build a bridge there also. But right now, if the other option is, instead of deepening the whole channel, is to make in the center of the channel, and you'll see these things all over the place,
you just have a drainage feature. It's like a 6-foot wide, little 2-foot deep, 6-foot wide channel that goes in the middle of that channel. So now you don't have the water ponding up in those areas that are there. And then where you cross the concrete crossing, you would basically saw cut there, put in a couple of 24-inch pipes, and then concrete back over again. So the low water crossing stays the same. The only reason you're putting in the drainage pipes is so water doesn't just pond there anymore. Because right downstream of that low water crossing, that's when Alsatian Oaks drainage comes into that channel. And from there on further down, it's already deeper there because Alsatian Oaks built it deeper to get that water out of there. Does that make sense to everybody?
So if I understand you correctly, the main flow of this in a major flooding event does not change the water that's going over their driveway.
Correct.
But because we've done some deepening over here, basically it's just a drain that takes the low volume just to keep it from standing.
That's right. This would just keep the water from standing there.
Well, no, I want to speak to why this is coming to the council now. So in October 26, what I asked for and was approved by council was a deepening and widening of the entire channel. As that effort took shape, we ran into this crossing issue, and that added a significant cost to the project, which is when I invited Phil to be a part of this to help me understand, okay, what are the implications? You just because I'm not an engineer. So to ask for an engineer's opinion, which he's just kind of explained to you. It is not, you're accurate in stating that, it's not one of the higher priority ones in the KFA, but also keep in mind when we started putting this together, I had already told them, well, this is one of the items, we're already looking at addressing this, right? And so they were entering into that study thinking this was already going to be taken care of. It was going to be deepened and widened. So my concern is, I still think this is a good idea. I said that in my opinion in the thing. I still think it's worth doing. Whether you could get away with putting a channel down the middle of it, if that was a solution just to get it out, it doesn't address the overall problem that the channel isn't wide enough or deep enough for a 25-year event. And yeah, I think that's just my concern.
And as K-Free said, it goes back to what happened is that when they start looking at 25-year events and 10-year events, the numbers keep getting updated over the years. So when they first, the original development of
30 years ago,
Village, they had different calculations then and different loads that the government tells you should look at. So it was adequate, could have been adequate back then, but that's the way it's always been. And so now you say, but if we ask K-Freeze and their thing, when they did that 25-year rainfall, I mean, the whole city was underwater. It wasn't.
Not the 25-year.
Well,
maybe
not the whole city, but a lot of the city.
There were a lot of portions.
A lot of the portions, far more than these 5 areas that we're going to be looking at. So because I asked K-Freeze, okay, line this up with these other, what are the major ones? Is this an area that we should move to the top of the list? Because this bridge is going to be a substantial cost to put that bridge in.
Yeah, yes.
And so I think if we were going to do that, and if that's the option, I think number one is we need to know, ask K-Freeze, okay, well, what's the cost of this? Because just to hire somebody to go out there and build a 700-foot long drainage little trench to the middle and move that dirt over to the airport if you want to get rid of it, because we have plenty of rooms at the airport that we can put and then saw cut do this. Yeah, I mean, you're talking, tens
of thousands.
Tens of thousands, yeah.
Right, well, sure.
Versus my guesstimate to go in there and do this the other way, you're talking, 300,000.
Well, what we had approved, when we went out for bid to get just initial estimates from the contractors that were on site at the time, we got one bid for 120,000 and we got one for like 180.
But that wasn't including building
that was not including the bridge. And that was part of the issue is the scope of the bridge. So there's a lot of discussion with the family about what they believe is required versus what K-Freeze is saying needs to be done. And that's, again, why I brought you in, to help me understand that, that back and forth. Yeah, I think they're proposing, what, their proposal, I think, would cost around $60,000 to $70,000. If that's my recollection, I can go back and try and find that and certainly provide it to you all. What kind of is being pushed back, or what's being requested from a family, something more on the order of what Country Village did. That's like a $200,000 bridge. I mean, it's a much more expensive bridge, much 4-foot, culverts, that kind of thing. And what I think was being proposed was 3 24-inch. Do you know? Did you know?
I thought you thought one, I was going in two.
No, but what before,
Oh,
at the time I brought you in,
Yeah.
there was kind of discussion about, okay, what does it need to be? They've done the calculations, if we deepen and widen it, how much water are we adding to the top? Then what does it take to convey that water underneath rather than on top? And I want to say it was 2 or 3 24-inch pipes.
Yeah, and you would have to bring the whole thing up. The other thing to remember is, when the development that's going to happen to the northwest of this area,
Yeah.
there's going to be more development. The channel's going to have to be deepened.
This area right here?
No.
Well, because, this is another area that we need to think about, I
I
think.
don't think that
That
drains.
drains to the river.
That drains to the river.
No.
Not the east side, no.
Well, okay, yeah,
That's
no,
not
because there's a
what it is.
considerable amount that comes right through here and comes, because there's this person's, where's the yard?
I thought all
This
that stuff
person's
drained
yard
to the
floods.
field.
So they already have flooding concerns here.
I thought- Yeah, but I think that drains to the field.
I'm just, no, this drains this way. The water this way goes this way. So I don't know what amount of this development would drain that direction, right? I just know currently, and this is the concern that staff has, because we held a drainage meeting, we heard input from the residents, and the anecdotal, again, I've only been here years, I don't know, but the anecdotal stories are that drainage ditch already fills up. That in certain rain events, not the 300 or whatever, but in certain rain events, this ditch is already brimming. It's already full. And
And I don't doubt that, but Scott, all over town are drainage issues. But see, go up north of that whole area.
yeah,
See,
so you
all
were
that
saying when
area,
this develops.
Everything, you're gonna have to make a massive drainage feature to get that stuff out.
And
Whoever
I-
develops that area we're gonna have to have that discussion with them, because nothing can be developed up there without really substantially improving what's down below, including, I mean, if you go in San Antonio, you'll see these, because you can't widen them, there's no more land, so that means you gotta make them deeper, you gotta make them concrete, and they get very expensive, but there's no way to develop that property without improving the channels.
Unless they do retention, right?
Retention's not gonna be big enough.
Okay. So anyway, so your point, it's that I want to clarify your point there. In our prior discussion was, Scott, you're going to go spend potentially $150,000 to improve the channel and another $60,000 or $70,000 on a crossing, when we could establish something in the middle and take care of it for maybe $50,000, who knows, or something less than that.
Because-
And if you spend all that money, you risk having to redo it all when this develops. That, I just want to clarify, that was kind of your
So
argument,
any
right?
money we spend on this
Okay.
is gonna go, it's basically all gonna be for naught. Because whatever goes up there, and then that developer, in my mind, that developer should be the person that participates in this drainage downstream.
Well, so we take care of what's our responsibility. Once, if that develops, I'm assuming that eventually it will, then they bear the burden of that instead of the people that live here right now. And that's kind of the same tenet that we've been going with, is don't burden the people that are here right now with people that are coming, because we don't know when, where.
Well, I mean, one solution to this current discussion, because we've already, like I said, you have an action that took place in October 26th that has not been executed, is to say, okay, we have an ongoing drainage study happening right now. An outcome of that drainage study will be projects, and we would like to, rather than, because this was born before that drainage study started, right? So we could, one action item would be to say, let's put the burden of this project and its ultimate outcome, whatever that is, as part of the effort that's ongoing with the drainage project, and not, basically not proceed any further with the current design or current discussion of deepening and widening the ditch.
Other than the fact that if we want to take care of this standing water issue, I mean, that's the big urgency is this. Texas water right law says that you cannot impact your neighbor downstream from your actions, and you cannot redivert your water. So you can't dam it up and send it to someone else. But based on the engineering that's been done, this drainage issue has been with us since really the original Country Village was done.
Yeah, well, we exacerbated it a little bit, and it's my fault, because when we were in the midst of the Country Village trying to get their bridge design done, and I was asked, what do we do? What elevation do we need to put the bottom of our culvert at? And I said, well, we got to, first off, this is silted end, so we got to get 10 or 11 inches out of the bottom of this possibly. And secondly, it looks like we're going to need to widen and deepen this. So we had back and forth K-freeze, and I don't know what they told them, but they made it lower, which is one reason why you see the ponding. Because it's not getting through, and that's why your solution would at least fix that.
Is put a drainage, just a very simple little drainage feature, get it out of there. And then, but I do think that this area needs to be incorporated into the overall drainage.
Well, it is. It's not like it's been ignored. It's just I think I need to change the assumption that was given to K-freeze.
Yeah.
That this would be done, and we need to back up and say, no, let's look at a broader picture, and they may need to expand their scope to the north, as you're saying, because I don't believe that's in their scope, the development of the property to the north and west.
I think that the reason that
Their project scope may end.
the reason that they found that the development was not having much of an impact was that most of the drainage that's coming into that area is coming from the hills to the north.
Mhm.
And all they've done is divert it and bring it to the south. So they really didn't change anything, they didn't redirect anything. They just captured the water because they're putting a drainage channel all the way across the north end of the subdivision and just catching that water and bringing it to this channel. So, but when you accelerate that drainage from the hills above it, that channel is going to get overwhelmed more quickly. And that's really what we need to look at.
So I don't know what I'm asking for tonight, if you need to take action other than, if there is, Phil, if you want to make a plea to go ahead and do the plan that you've proposed, put that in the bottom. You've already approved more than that amount, and it's just about changing the scope of what was approved on October 26th.
Where is that money coming from?
General fund. What we would do is issue a notice, a reimbursement resolution, and then that would be part of, that would be able to be refunded through a future bond issue for drainage improvements.
But right now.
It would come from fund balance.
It's not what we approved, it's not a sufficient amount of money to do the project as we know that because we have to.
Because of the downstream, right.
So we could, so I guess I would entertain, just for discussion first right now, is that you go out and get bids to do this central drainage channel, saw cut across the easement thing and put in a pipe across there and ask K-Freeze how to do that. I mean, size-wise and everything, because they understand now, and then see what that cost is.
Mhm.
And if it's the numbers that we're talking about, because it's already approved, different scope, but I'd say go and do that.
So either BGE or K-Freeze has elevations along that channel?
Yes.
And can give us some rough estimates as to what it would cost to grade it, to get it reconstructed.
Well, again, I would like to give them a plan, and then let's go out for bid, and then let's see what the bids come back as.
Yeah, I think what I would make a motion is that we request K-Freeze design a drainage feature in there, not an improvement to the channel.
So I don't know if we created a task order for this originally, but if there isn't one, I'll just bring back a task order, and then we can have further discussion at that time. Does that sound good?
Okay, so you don't want a motion right now, just direction?
I'll bring it, well, I'm going to, whatever. Because I don't know if there's a task order for the other one. I have to verify. Devin left, so I don't know if he remembers either. I don't think there was. I think they just approved going out for bid, so. Yeah.
Can we get this open for public discussion at some point?
Oh, by the way, do you want to speak to, so I think Councilman King misspoke when he said that this isn't open for public debate. The fact of the matter is that state law changed a couple of years ago, and public is allowed to speak to any item on the agenda at any time in the agenda. They still have to be recognized by the mayor, and they are still subject to all the time limitations that are established by the city for public comment. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Okay, so the requirement is that the public be allowed to speak before council takes up action items. And so that can either be done via one public comment session at the beginning of a council meeting, and then that suffices for, meeting the legal requirements there. Or council may adopt separate rules that would allow persons for council to accept public comments at the time of the actual agenda item.
Okay. So what I would recommend is next time, do it during the public comments.
I guess, but if Darren wanted to, he could ask Mr. Hebe to speak.
Yeah.
If-
Well, that's what I was going to say. Next time, so next time,
Oh, I'd say right
do it
now.
during public comments, but for right now, please. If you don't mind, next time, but for this meeting, go ahead and if you'll come up to the microphone, just state your name and address.
I'm going to leave it on.
We'll circumvent a little bit.
Bradley Habe, 1075 Highway 90 East, and the low water crossing that you're talking about belongs to us. The city has an easement over it. It's our only path of ingress and egress out of our property. The city, when they did that, our houses weren't back there. A lot of that stuff wasn't there. And digging it down 3 or 5 feet, whatever you did, and laying a concrete pad across it worked fine for a long time. But it doesn't work now. And to Mr. King's point, we've talked to Mr. Persine. They've looked at their plans again and realized that what they did, or what the city originally did there, was plan that as a low water crossing. But with the volume of water and the speed of the water that comes through there, it does not qualify as a low water crossing. Plus, it was built to a flood standard of 1 year, not the city required 25 years. One of the other issues is the hydrology report for Country Village Estates. Doesn't appear to be complete because best practices indicates that you take your drainage to the next point of confluence, and the Country Village Estates hydrology model stops right behind the church. So it does not include that entire path behind Walmart going down and including Flat Creek. I think BGE did the original hydraulic modeling for Country Village Estates. I don't know who the independent was that checked that off before they handed it to the city, but somebody should have caught that, not us. Mr. Persine did give us some hydraulic modeling for Alsatian Oaks, which begins behind Walmart, and the variance between the Country Village Estates hydraulic model and the Alsatian Oaks hydraulic model is 228 cubic feet per second. So that's a pretty substantial difference for the same spot. So I know that a lot of our planning for this particular channel is based off of the data that's provided from the hydrology report for Country Village Estates, but there seems to be a problem with that report. And we've asked for the model because I've got people that can independently verify it, but we've not been able to get that because what we theorize is that the curve that they used when they input the model is off, and that's why we're getting the different results. Like I say, we've got somebody that can provide that for us, but I've not gotten anything from the city. Now, yesterday, Mr. Persine did provide us the modeling for Alsatian Oaks, and that's how we were able to do a real quick comparison We didn't get it soon enough to do a deep dive to give you all the information, but again, we need the modeling from Country Village Estates so that we can give you proper feedback. Digging it down is not going to solve the problem. The easement that we gave the city was that the city would maintain it and keep the property in substantially the same condition. Digging it down 4 or 5 feet is not keeping it in substantially the same condition. Currently, the models that Country Village Estate provided is pretty close to what we're actually seeing the outflow in a 5-year event. They're showing it at 2.55, 2.65 feet, and the actual flow level that we measured from drift from last year's weather event, when it rained real hard and the storm came through, was right at 3 feet. Now, I know that's not technically accurate, but we measured the drift in that ditch, so there's about a ½ a foot difference there. With the concentration of the water and the rate of flow of that water, that's a serious, serious public problem. Well, not a public problem, it's a problem for the families that live back there. Because water coming through there at that volume, at 2 to 3 feet high, is going to wash somebody away. And we did what we could once the channel was put up there. We drove T-posts in and we marked them off at 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, so you would know to look at that in the dark, because that's typically when it rains. And we've already suffered property damage from that. One of the crews came through and they shredded it, they cut it to kind of keep the brush and everything down. When they did, they knocked over our water marker. A few weeks later, my daughter was coming home from work late one night, drove in there, ruined the engine on her car because she didn't know how deep it was. We never brought that to the city as seeking any damages for that, but we have been making the city knowledgeable about this particular problem for a decade at least. And I've been in personal communication with Ms. Soto about it ever since it flooded last year. Now, there is new modeling out that recommends a culvert there, which is an appropriate solution. And I understand that the city doesn't want to put funds towards that, but I think the people at Country Village Estates, if they gave you a hydrology model that says that removing 20 or 30 or 40% of the green space is not going to increase the amount of water going into that channel, I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And like I said, if you can provide me with the hydraulic model that they used, I'll give it to my engineers and have them double check it, and I can tell you where the problem is. But right now, you've got one report saying this, the other showing an increase of over 200 cubic feet per second. Those two should match,
And just, who's your engineer?
My daughters.
Okay, and who they work for?
One works, they both work up in Dallas.
Okay. And that answers the question.
So
But
there's
you did-
no...
You did say you have another person though, right? I thought I saw an email that y'all had a specialist that you were...
Yeah, we've got a specialist too.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
is that-
we've got the gentleman that basically wrote the book for hydrodynamics that
Right.
cities follow.
So who-
He's based out of Austin.
Is he's an engineer?
Oh, yeah.
And his name? And by the way, the information you just told me, if Scott wants me to, I'm going to go back and talk to K-Freeze because they are the city's engineer. And, but I'd be just, unless you've already told Scott who that individual is.
I think you said, I thought you sent it to me. I was going to see where to find it if you can't remember it.
But that helps you. I understand what you're saying. And so I understand your concerns and what you're saying because, and I know what questions go best. Ask K-Freeze.
Yeah, and I don't know if the channel, I mean, I don't know if there's sediment that's built up over time, which probably has, because in looking at the construction of the houses in that particular area, they're in the 90s, 93, 94, 95.
It has built up a little bit.
Yeah.
But just cleaning the channel out doesn't mean we need to change the low water crossing.
That's not gonna fix the problem,
The fact
no.
that the low water crossing hasn't changed, that means the channel is still conveying the water over the low, so nothing has changed from the flow output over your low water crossing, if that makes sense, based on any sediment buildup. What you believe that the fact that they did Country Village Estates, that did increase flows, which their engineers didn't pick up, and that's what we need to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's done it yet, because we don't have all the hardscape in there. You don't have all the houses taking up the green space. But when those houses go in, you can only affect the flow so much by adjusting the timing.
Right, and that's what it has to do. It has to be when the rainfall
Right.
ends, and it doesn't immediately hit the channel. It
Right.
falls, and there's a timing delay.
Right, but there's a finite point where
Yeah.
that doesn't work.
So I know how to go back and talk.
Yeah, and in a development of that size, which basically, let's check that. Country Village Estates is basically the same footprint as what Walmart takes up. It's approximately the same size. Now, if you've been behind Walmart, you see how large a detention pond they have. And that works. But that development probably needs a detention pond, and there's probably a reason why their report came back, said it had a zero impact on that particular channel.
So did you need any more information from them? Okay.
I know what I need.
All right, cool.
Yeah, thank you for that.
But
Thank you for talking.
and we can table this for now and have a further discussion on it.
Well, I
can
think
get
the best
name
bet
of
is-
our expert.
I think our best bet is to put it in so that we're comparing it with the engineering from the two different reports. I think it should go into the engineering study that we're doing with everybody else.
Found
right?
him.
What's up, Billy?
Boyd is his name.
I'll get you what I can get you. I can't give it to you if I don't have it, but as soon as I can get it, I'll get it in your hands. I'm not purposely withholding information. I want you to know that. And I appreciate your patience. As you can see, there's been a lot of development and a lot of back and forth, and we're going to work through it, so.
Well, you know, I know that when we were on a teleconference not too long ago, there was an urgency to get this done. And we've been waiting for the engineering, we've been waiting for hydrology reports for close to 6 months.
Yep.
So,
We got a lot of stuff on our plates
Oh, I
right
know
now.
you do.
So we want to get it done as fast as practical. We don't want to rush it and do the wrong thing. That's really expensive to,
well, we felt a lot better when the engineering came back recommending the culvert, because, you know, I've got 2 sister-in-laws back there. One's had a stroke, the other's had her
Sorry to
hip
hear that.
replaced. That's the only way we got to get in and out.
right.
So,
And we will absolutely do anything that is legally responsible. We have to be careful about the funds because, beyond our legal responsibility, just because they are the funds of everybody that lives here and pays
Sure.
taxes. That's coming out of property taxes. So we will absolutely do what is correct with this.
Our experts are looking at it like, and maybe it's not so much the city's responsibility, and maybe the developer should be shouldering majority of it, since they're the ones that are greatly affecting the downstream. And they provided you with a report that doesn't follow best practices. For whatever reason, I don't know.
Great. All right.
Anyway.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we're going to take a recess at 8:12.
We're so close, Herb.
I know.
It didn't, it just said Mr. Boyd. I'm not sure what it
Yeah.
is. He said Austin, but excuse me, Austin. Okay. Well, you know, everybody, you can declare yourself an expert.
That's not even Carl, the expert. He said, in certain circumstances, water will
Yes, it will.
Well, that's why I asked.
Accelerated.
Yes. Fire hose, and I think I'll shoot it
Well, the channel is 30 years old, and Franklin was designed as agricultural engineer.
And all they did was
comes straight down from this property over here.
This is the Grove.
Yeah, so it comes down here, and this.
So where am I looking when I'm
You're
looking
looking
at that
right
picture?
here, right at the edge of this other person's yard and our yard, and it comes across, it cuts the
And this is
water.
the ditch?
That's the ditch. And let me show you
It's scary because you hear all the words you're talking about.
all of this dirty water is just pouring.
Now, at this level, I'm sorry, I was just thinking, at this level, you're saying this is right here. How deep is it right there? How deep is the ditch right there? I know like right here.
It's not a compacted.
Okay, because I know like right here, it's almost level there. It's not much of a ditch at this stage. It
Because they
kind of
even put
turns.
in a cement
Right.
turn right there. There's a cement barrier
Yeah,
where it
we're sharing all this power.
This is, that's the construction fence. That was 2 inches today, and there's not a house up there.
Yeah, if you could, when you send those, this is what we're looking at. This was the thing that this wasn't the
Okay, so, well, but what they pushed off to the side wasn't compacted, so we don't have to build there. Excavation, not filled. It was excavated, not filled.
That was excavated off to the side. That was.
Knowing where that transition is really important.
Well, you can, basically what's flat where the little loopy road was, that was excavated.
Okay.
And
Well, that's good, then putting the building right in the middle of that loop.
the excess was pushed off to the side when they went up the hill to make the new spot up higher. They just pushed everything off the hillside going towards Mike's house.
Oh, the other way.
Yeah, it went straight over the city property, and it just got pushed straight ahead. And what's the high side of both of that area, that upper like it's probably 7 or 6 feet higher.
He was saying that that loop at the top of the hill, that was excavated, not filled.
So what we're seeing there, that area,
So that would be,
You know, I have a bet that we're putting in this one at 8:30. I offered to let you know my bet.
You guys go towards Mike Pence's house down there.
Darren, we're ready.
We got another page.
That was pushed off from the loopy road, right where it was run parking lot.
I understand. Thanks, Arnie, that helped.
oh, good. I forgot we had executive session, I turned the page.
No.
Jeez.
Gee, come on.
There it is right here.
Right here.
Go.
No, there. No, right there. Next to her.
Herb's got it.
Oh, Herb, is that yours or she?
No, you can have it.
Well, no, because
She gave me one.
Troublemaker.
I'm sweet innocent. I don't know what you're talking about. Thank you, sir.
We'll have a cupcake in a minute.
Troublemaker. Gee.
Why do you want your stuff back?
I left earlier, so I can't fault you. I know, I can't fault you. I left earlier because I'm black.
I saw you get up and leave. Thought to myself, man, that's nice. You can just get up and leave whenever you want.
Well, you could too.
Oh yeah, I can go and then he'll get the hook.
Yeah. Where you going, Herb? Yeah.
Don't come back.
Is our internet working here, the Wi-Fi?
Should be.
Did you all change Wi-Fi?
It's working.
It should be Phil is the boss. That's the password.
Biden went on news conference this evening about the shooting in Uvalde.
I'm sure they're going to call for gun control in Texas again.
Thank you very
That's
much.
just right out of the book.
Oh, there's a picture of him.
Yeah, he's
All right. Okay, so we are reconvening at 8:19.
11 minutes.
Would you say that one more time? I'm
We're
sorry.
reconvening at 8:19.
We're reconvening at 8:19. Next item is discussion and possible action on additional fence clearing at municipal airport.
I moved to table this item. I'm just kidding. So, once again, I appreciate Phil's willingness to come and give me a hand from time to time. Each one of you, when I've called on you, it really is beneficial to me as a administrator to have your knowledge, expertise, and just the local flair for certain things. So one of the things we're dealing with is the fence out at the airport. The contractor has started the work. And, no offense to the contractor, but he's bellyached a lot about, I can't get up close to the fence. We spent $14,000 to get him up close to the fence, and he's saying he can't get within 2 feet of it, which was the parameters that the council approved for erection of that, or establishing that new high fence. That's what's being installed, is a high fence. Phil graciously agreed to go out there. Paul's been out there numerous times to mark the property lines. We took a look at it. And along the western side, there was a bunch of concrete culverts that were blocking our contractor's ability to get up there and trim it. So that area definitely is deeper. It's difficult to
Do you
get
want to bring that up
to.
on your maps, since you already had the maps up? Just
Sure.
scroll down. It was really helpful when we went over
Sure.
it earlier to be able to see that.
Absolutely. Modern technology. So where we're talking about is the fence, so to be clear, the fence will be installed along this western border, along the southern border, and up to this point. I can't remember, it's up to this point. Do you remember,
I
Phil?
thought it was where you had before.
Here? I think so too. Yeah, I'm almost positive it goes to here.
That's the new
Yeah.
annex tract, yeah.
So that's where the high fence is going in. He's already installed it all the way up to this point, because he could get to that, and it's on our property line, which is great. And it's a beautiful fence. No trees, no nothing, no obstructions. But from here to here, there was a ton of concrete pipe that was laid up against
Bunch of
it,
garbage.
and it all got overgrown. There was no efforts, and when we came in to trim it, when Cedar Beetle, I believe it was, came and trimmed it back, he couldn't reach and get close enough to this fence line. And so they're saying, look, we can't get even within 24 inches of that. Now, we could say, well, I'm sorry, tough luck, that's what, you're going to have to find a way to do it. You're going to have to pay the contractor extra. But there's some discussion there, right? Along the southern line, we have similar issues. Now, the staff has spent about 8 weeks clearing that, and then the parts crew came in and did a tremendous amount of clearing. So we've done a lot of work in here. It's not to improve it, but it's still a difficult issue, not just because of the trees, but because as you see some of these darker lines, these are washouts, and what they look like on the northern side of the fence is, in some places, big V-shaped gullies that are pretty deep. So you'll have a fence floating in the air when you go across those areas. So one of the things that I originally proposed, and we have a pretty good culvert right here. So we know that no matter what we need to do, I think Phil and I agree that we need to probably cut this at a 45-degree angle, right? And so even if we're on the property line, we'd cut it at a 45-degree angle and then go on the property line again. We thought that we could save a bunch of money. We went out and got a bid, just retracking what we did last year. Last year we went out and got bids to see what it would cost to clear the fence line. It was like 60 grand. The council, we met and said, okay, we're not spending 60 grand. So what if we just trimmed it and said within 24 feet? So that's what we agreed on. We had it trimmed, 24 inches. We had it trimmed. Then the farm changed hands from son to father. And we lost some time because the fence wasn't erected in the time frame it was supposed to be. It was supposed to have been done in June, and it's just now being taken care of. So y'all are all just, you're aware of that, but just to speak to that. So in that intervening period, we had some new growth. We had fallen trees and other issues from wind damage. We've gone in and cleaned those up. We've done what we can on the southern border. What I've brought to you is a proposal to clean up just this western section so that we can continue the fence line along that, on the property line. And that would cost us about $10,000. Unfortunately, we thought maybe we can get someone to come in and do this whole section for like 15 to 16, and that guy came back with a quote of $38,000 to do the whole line. So I'm not asking you for that amount of money unless you want to give it to me, but we're asking for $10,000 to put this on the property line. And then along the back, my proposal is to establish an airport road along this back fence. We'd move the high fence in maybe 12 feet, 12 to 14 feet, whatever is necessary to establish the road. And then the fence that's there would be put into good repair by the farmer's contractor, and signs applied to that fence that say airport property. There are places where the fence is completely missing. This is one of those areas, right along the southern edge of our runway. Is that right, Phil? Right? I think it was completely gone right here.
Yeah.
So they'd have to establish something on our property line because the idea is, I think one of the fears is if we move this fence in, we're kind of giving up our property line, and over time, granted, they can't take it. There's I think Paul spoke to that when we spoke about takings and whether that's, a farmer neighbor could try and do that. They really can't legally. But the idea is we reestablish our fence and allow for a road, and that takes away the issue of having to deal with the trees.
But a perimeter fence around an airport is a perfectly normal occurrence, and it's a good thing. I mean,
Perimeter road.
to what you're suggesting is move out 12 feet and put the fence, and then create a road on the south boundary of the airport. Eventually, you probably need a road all the way around, so you can drive the complete perimeter of the airport on some kind of a surface area.
And this would...
But you can't do it in the ground the way it is now, if it's raining.
Right.
And the one thing is the farmer's not going to use this road. The farmer's going to be on the inside of the fence because that's where his activities are. So now you're talking about a 12-foot area that probably nobody's going to go drive around there.
It'd be up to the airport to maintain.
Yeah, so over a period of time, it is going to grow. I didn't realize it was just that small portion. I thought that for the 10,000, he was also going to catch this east side. That shouldn't take...
No, the east side's done. This is taken care of.
Okay, well, that little area there shouldn't take 3 days to, because that was based on a day rate, but...
But it's a mess.
It's a mess, but...
I sent you the photos of it.
I am not... I'm going to be conservative in my estimate. I'm also going to... I'm not going to tell you it's going to take less time because I'm not doing the work, number one. And number two, the people who have done the work, David's done most of this work. He's been out on the line doing it with his coworkers. He worked with the guy that gave us the quote, and they're the ones that said it's going to take at least 2 days. So it's $3,500 to mobilize and $2,500 a day. So you're I think it was $7,800. I don't know how that adds up to $7,800, but it was somewhere around, or maybe it's $3,000 to mobilize and $2,500 a day. So that's $7,800 minimum to do, and I'm asking for 10 just to be safe.
Yep, everybody's hacking on fuel costs.
Shoot, yeah.
Now, first off, and by the way, you said 16,000, and I heard it was 17,000, but that's not a big deal. But that was also, so he's saying just for that lower, so move your thing over to there, or all the way across the line?
I believe the $38,000 is to take it from this edge all the way to this, this whole area. That would be 38, this whole thing.
You're talking about...
Because we don't need the eastern edge cleaned. We've got that taken care
You
of.
can't put a fence in that corner because there's a gully that's 5 feet deep.
Right here?
Right, no, on the opposite. Go to the west corner, all the way to the west.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's why
You can't put a fence there.
Yeah, we talked about that already. We're going to have to put that at a 45. Yeah.
So you're talking about, basically bulldozing everything, fence, trees, the whole works, just clean the ground.
For the 38,000.
Yeah.
So the other issue with this is we're not talking about airport funds, and the airport needs to be self-sufficient. So I'll be honest with you. I think that what we really need to do is put the road down at the bottom, keep it away from it. It gives them the ability to maintain, whether they do or not. That is going to be on the airport to do that. If we can't pay for this out of airport funds, I don't think we should pull it out of general funds. I think we should make it fit to the funds that we have.
Well, the airport really did, I'm being sincere, the airport didn't have the $14,000 that they used to clear it. We need every penny we can get out of the airport right now.
And I have to say that I don't think 12 feet is enough. You can't turn a vehicle through a gate in a 12-foot road. So I think you'd have to at least pull it back 20 feet.
Well, the other thing is you can't turn around 12 feet.
No,
So
we'd
if
have
you
to
go down there and
have a
offset-
gate at both ends, but you can't make a turn through a gate in a 12-foot fence.
Do one of those Austin Power moves?
Yeah.
if you had a 12-foot truck.
And the one thing is that those drainage things, the one thing, we're paying for the high fence. So we're paying for a high fence we're not putting on the property line. So the one argument here is, and as far as the funds, yes, the airport doesn't have the funds, but the city could loan it to the airport, and the airport could pay it back.
I'm going to strongly encourage not to go that route. I just, we don't even have the ability to repay it. at this
So
stage.
what do we even gain by doing that? Because we're not losing any revenue from the farming, correct?
What now?
We're not losing any revenue from the farming by putting the fence up inset?
You lose about an acre.
Yeah, but we already give them credit, like, no, you're not, because
So we're not losing revenue, we're not using the property currently, we're not in danger of losing the property. We have no definite plans for doing this, to move it on acreage this size, to move it just a little bit in. I think it's the most financially responsible thing to do.
Well, instead of moving it 12 feet, why not just move it 4 feet in, because then there's not a problem with anything. Because 4 feet in, he's okay.
But then-
yeah, he thinks he's okay with 4
But then
feet.
you can't maintain that growth between your high fence and your property boundary.
Does the airport have to maintain the fence line, the tree line, or does the farmer?
So the airport, it's still airport property. Airport is ultimately responsible for everything. Well, the way we've agreed on this particular fence is, if a tree falls on the fence, and it's our tree that falls on the fence, then we will split the cost of whatever that repair is. The city will split the cost on repairing the fence. If it's a neighbor's tree that falls on our fence, then we will do our best to recoup the cost from the neighbor to repair our fence. Yeah, good luck, I know, but.
Well, no, Texas law says that they don't, it's our responsibility if their tree falls on our fence.
Why don't we set it back far enough that we're not going to be affected by that? It's easier to maintain, less chance of damage.
I envision 10 years from now, you're gonna have a 12-foot wide path with nothing but brush and trees
But you just
that
have
you
to
can't
shut
even
it
go
down
through.
Well, as long as they're mowing it, as long as they're maintaining it, then you don't.
Who's maintaining it?
The airport.
So we're gonna tell them, do they have a shredder that they can go in there and routinely cut that 12-foot pathway through there?
They mow something out there.
If we tell them to do that, then that would be one way to do it.
Yeah,
We approved that last year for.
they've got a mower. I know that they're using something to maintain all of that airport property. I know that I had that, just anecdotally, that discussion with David today.
These creek bottoms that are through there, are we gonna correct those at all? Because you can't drive through there.
Right, yeah, I know. When you talked about putting some big stones and some other things, I know that that's David's, that's his desire, is to make that usable property. But again, I'm not going to promise we're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to prioritize what we do at the airport, and that'll be something that will be taken care of
How
eventually.
wide would the road have to be usable road? I mean.
For what?
Well, if you just want to put a perimeter road around the airport, how wide should it be?
12 feet's fine as long as you don't have to turn around.
Well, in this case, you have to turn around.
Why?
Because the road comes to an
At
end.
both ends.
No, it doesn't, it just keeps going all the way around.
No, it stops in the corner.
It stops in the corner, 'cause
southwest.
they've already
No,
put the
no,
fence along
45 degrees is you would,
There's no road going north.
I wouldn't make it less than 20 feet myself, because you won't be able to get a vehicle through there if you've got growth on the property line.
But maybe we need to go back and look at the long-term plan for the airport and see what size would a perimeter road need to be, because that needs to be put into the long-term plan before any development is designed.
actually, Herb, it's real easy. All you have to do is before that 45 degree, you're gonna make a gate that you open up to go into through the house hall.
So you could make it a 12-foot road and put a
Has
gate.
this gone in front of
And
you
you do
before?
20, but.
Here's the issue. I'm just being blunt. We don't have a lot of time. The contractor's already out there. They've already erected the west side fence up to the point where they can't reach. They've got the east side fence that we cleared that with the park's help, they pulled off of other projects, came out there, we cleared the east line. I say we, I didn't do any part of it. But it got cleared. So they're going over there. I don't know how many more days we have, but I really, truly, I need a decision tonight. And the answer is either you say, okay, sorry, tough luck, you got 2 feet to work with, or you give me 4 feet, or you give me a road. But I don't have time to go back to the Parks Board and make a big debate about this. I just need to
I'm
know.
staking it on Thursday.
And
Right.
one quick question, if we don't hire this guy to clear that little area there, if we're gonna bring it in 12 feet here, we could bring it in 12 feet there also.
Well, except that you and I walked that. That's not a road, that's a drainage area. Like, you can't put a road there.
Oh, that's where we drove down.
Well, we drove a little further in from that.
So does anybody on council impact the airport financially or functionally? 'Cause
I do not.
I think if you don't have that concern, let's let our city administrator and our airport manager figure out what that needs to be so that they can maintain it, so that we're not losing funds, and so that it will accomplish what it needs to without us having to spend money out of general fund.
I just have a real quick question for the attorney, Cynthia.
I'm sorry?
Cynthia, if we move the fence line,
That's 30 feet.
is there in Texas a law that says the people around it can't encroach on it and it becomes their property after so many years?
That's true. You cannot
Adverse possession.
adversely
Okay.
possess against a.
Because I've lived in states where they,
Oh, yeah, private property owners can do it to private property owners.
Okay.
But
You
not
just
against
can't do it to
municipalities or governments.
Okay, I just want that in the meeting minutes, that way everybody's loud and clear.
An adverse possession, even on a residence, is really hard if you're proactively
Yeah.
using it.
Oh, yeah.
Even as a road.
And then you still have to prove it before a judge.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
This is 30 feet. That's what I was saying. I think we drove over here. That was,
So the plan out there now is hire this guy to go and clear that back to the property line, so you can build that fence on the property line. We do 45 degrees, we put a gate there, and then you build your 12-foot wide.
No, I don't think that we clear any of this. I think we move the entire fence in so that we don't have to clear it.
Well, you'd have to move it in 30 feet there.
That area right there is a mess, because there's a deep channel, it runs water, there's debris in there.
I don't know how far, you wouldn't have to move it 30 feet, because this is an old picture for
The
one.
property line's
We
in the
did do
center.
some clearing here. It might be 4 feet off here. The concern, obviously, is that 4 feet's unusable. As Phil pointed out when we were there, that's going to be completely overgrown. There's going to be no ability to maintain it in the future.
It also
Right.
runs water right down that property line.
The water runs, if you put it 4 feet in, the water would be actually to the east of the fence still. The road, to the extent, if we wanted to do a road, would actually be well inside. And that's between the farm and the airport where they want to put a road on that side of the property.
I really think that we've got enough stuff that we've got to spend money on. We shouldn't be wasting it on things that give us absolutely no benefit. If there was a use for this, if we were losing money in another area and it was an investment, that was one thing. If we were in danger of losing it, that's another thing. But I think the most responsible thing we could do is just allow them to set that far enough in that it doesn't negatively impact the city or the airport. I know it kind of goes against your grain, but I think that's the best thing to do.
Well, and part of it, I'm changing my mind now on the fact that we can't lose it. And someone, whatever your fancy term was.
Adverse possession.
Adverse.
Possession.
It's, yeah, if we go in there and do as long as David or whoever is, in the future, that they have to maintain that 12-foot space. The only thing is, to help David, if it doesn't matter, you came in 20 feet, you wouldn't have to worry about filling in those gullies as much up next to the property line versus 12 feet. If we're gonna get it planned anyway.
Yeah, I'll just have that discussion. I don't know what
And you
it's
could
going
get
on.
equipment in there to fill the gullies, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're making 20 feet instead of 12 feet.
Or figure out what it is with the airport manager. Do
Will
you need
do.
a motion on this? Or do you need
Yes,
direction?
please. Just to make it tombstone it, I would like it. That'd be great.
Okay. I think the motion is to have the city administrator and the airport manager determine where the fence needs to be so that it doesn't negatively impact the city or the airport.
And for the funding, we don't need any motion on
Or
that.
you could,
There's no
yeah, you
funding.
could just move, honestly, the motion would simply be that the airport, you'd authorize the city administrator and the airport to determine the best location for the fence.
I make that motion as stipulated.
Great. I got a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Great. I got a motion by Councilman King, a second by Councilman Carey. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Good discussion. Next item is discussion and appropriate action on authorizing the city administrator to go out for a request for proposal for IT and phone support services.
And you'll see in your packet, we have a current IT provider. They've been doing a decent job. I do have some concerns about the phone, how the phones were handled and the ongoing issues we have for a company that built its business on phones originally. That was what they started out. I'm disappointed in how that's gone, and that's just is the way it is. But I provided some information about what our current budget is, how much we've spent year to date. The contract that we have with them was from 2014. So it's been in place for a number of years, and I think it's prudent to go out and just see what we would get if we were going to market. I provided you with a sample RFP from Lockhart, Texas, great barbecue in Lockhart, by the way. I like what they did. It's very thorough. If you have any suggestions for improvement or changes to the RFP, I'm open to those. I know that we've got a somewhat of an IT expert in our mayor, and also in Councilman Dyer, given his prior experience in those areas. So any feedback you have for that, this is just approving us going out for RFP, not approving the actual award of the contract. That would be at a later date.
So who is actually, who would modify the RFP to define the scope?
Well, you all can right now if you have any suggestions, or you could appoint a committee if you wanted to put you and Herb on that committee to look at it with me. That's fine.
You like focus.
What's that? You need more to do, Mayor. You don't have enough to do.
I know.
Yeah.
No, this is something that, part of this, and I think that Councilman Dyer can speak to this just as well, is the scope really defines the services that you're getting. So if we totally understand the services that we're currently getting, I know that you had requested some information. Do you feel confident in the level of detail that we have in that to be able to include that into the scope?
Well, that's one reason why I provided the contract. I mean, their existing contract, ideally, it should be fairly indicative of the scope of the services that we're receiving. Beyond, I mean, it's from 2014, so there's certain things that could have been expanded, right? There's additional things that weren't contemplated in 14 that they're currently doing. But in short answer, I've shared my shortcut, not shortcomings, but just the areas I lack expertise in. This is one of them. I don't have a really strong idea that what we're doing is that this represents their current scope. I would need someone like one of you to walk me through it and to talk about, okay, have you thought about this? Is this something that we need to consider? We're thinking about, help me punch holes.
It seems to me that before we can start doing what you're asking, we need to get some feedback from you and the city staff. Is the contract we have now doing what needs to be done? If it is it doing anything extra that we don't need? If it isn't, what's missing? So at least we can say, this contract gives us what we need or it doesn't.
I think
then we have to take the Lockhart sample that you're using for an RFP and see if we can kind of do a very close comparison to make sure we don't leave anything out and we don't add anything we don't need. And yeah, I think.
So I'm not on council, but I move to accept Herb's nomination for being on the committee.
I make a motion to authorize city staff to put together a request for proposal for IT and phone support services and ask Councilman Herb Dwyer to assist staff in developing, evaluating what we have and developing those RFP documents.
Great. And is Councilman Dyer amenable to that?
You should second that.
Would you like to second that?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, great. Any further discussion?
No.
All right. I have a motion by Councilman King, a second by Councilman Dyer. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Getting there. Next item, executive session. The city council will meet in the city council. The city council will meet repetitively in closed session under provisions of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, entitled Consultation with Attorney regarding settlement offer related to property located at 101 Carm Street. The next item is competitive utility.
That's actually not going to be.
That's right, we're taking that off. So we just have the one item for executive session. We're going to go into executive session at 8:44 PM.
I want you to know, I lost $1 tonight. I had faith in you. Not well placed.
Please, for the people that are still here, remember that the camera is still running.
Still on, yes.
So don't tell any terrible secrets.
Oh, thank you. I'll put it in my little record.
I want to make sure I have your contact information because I like people to see that process. You walk away and you're around to try that. So I will, if that's the only reason you're around, I will make sure you do that. I don't have a card. No, you can, my email is set on the website. That's fine. Scott, I appreciate you. I'm going to report games. That's picking up the. It's a difficult process, but.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, so, I know it wasn't the case on the copies I made for you guys, but it, like, everything that I had on the back, there wasn't on every sheet that everybody signed. I'm the sort of person who, rather than scared of name cheating, so I believe that I really do my best to present your arguments to everyone I talk to, just every other way as possible, and not try to make it Well, just like what Mr. King said, I just can't believe that everyone would have said this if they were, it's like, well, it's really, I gave them every piece of information I got from the zoning board, and everything that was sent to me, and it's hard to find any more information outside of meetings.
Yeah, this become a number,
But you have to use it only because when I'm in my
I was impressed by the amount of homework. So
I didn't do it.
well, you sure seemed put together for someone who didn't do anything.
The twin daughters of engineers, and when they saw this stuff, they got into it, and I just let them run with it, so. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, we've got a problem. Yeah, we'll hear you guys problem. We're gonna do this anyway.
So tell your son that won't hurt.
I know you feel like that. I mean, I've seen it in meetings, and you get good. I don't think I need to calm as you are. If that was going on right across the street from me. And we certainly didn't ask for them to put 1,000 homes right across the fence from us either. Okay, I can still, I guess, laugh it out of the ranch and just
Move a little further.
keep hopping like a frog until we get a little bit further away. How long do you guys live there?
So we bought the house back in June 2020. So we've been there almost 2 years. My wife grew up here. I moved here when I was in college.
She dragged you back, huh?
It wasn't very.
Not frustrating. You don't get in there trouble. Well, I mean, yeah, because you read all these plans and you got this, and then something like this comes out of left field. I mean, they're talking about all this drainage stuff, but what the hell's gonna happen when you put a 4-story hotel right there? I mean, they've got no place to go but right towards you.
And those 4 acres there, right now, they're more or less level. Just so spread around where it is.
Exactly.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Good way. Well, it doesn't substantially move because it's so thin, like you say. I mean, what does migrates north. But if they cover
It's very low, right?
yeah, but if they cover all that hardscape, then it's either they're going to have to bend it west or they're going to have to bend it east. If it comes east, they're probably going to send it into the road. They're going to send it in the road.
Whether they do it intentionally or accidentally, but Bush's Chicken, or it's Church's just got built from the corner there. Like, you look at it and the way their parking lot is built, all the water that falls on the building and the parking lot, they still got their little strips of green around the edges, and what falls there stays there. But most of it is very carefully put into the road.
Sheds into the street. Yeah.
And then that runs inches deep when it rains. The whole road runs inches deep. That's my house. I'm joking that you're gonna get a shop vac. Whenever it rains, just come out there, put one end in there and just spray it back into the yard.
Well, that's only going to be exacerbated when you've got something with that big of a footprint, and there's going to be relatively little green space there. So, yeah, that's all going to come into the road and go right back into that ditch. It's already dry. Wasn't designed right probably 30 years ago. And I mean, I don't hold the council completely responsible because somebody's supposed to look at that engineer stuff. I mean, if they say, well, hey, we've got all the figures here, it's not going to increase the runoff. I'm like, oh, that's great.
That's great. How?
Exactly. Okay, so is it just coincidental that they terminated the study at this point? That they're only figuring, 10 or 15-year events instead of kids?
It's crazy because I grew up around the same so there, if you have a lake in your yard, you just build a wall across the lower and it fills up.
Fills up, right.
And we just don't have problems with this. Wherever the rain falls, it's managed. It's just,
Well, we're just playing whack-a-mole right now.
there's so much less water, has so many more problems.
Well, it's just, our house wasn't back there in the early 90s when most of that country village stuff was being built. So your house was probably built in the early 90s, mid-90s, something. Yeah. So, and at that time, there wasn't nearly that much stuff back there. We moved back there in 94. And that drainage channel that our road goes across, it was a big problem until we moved back there because we just had cattle back there. If it rained real hard, we had to go back there to check the cattle. You never went across that. After a day or two, it'd go down. We could go and do stuff. But now it's like, even when my kids were younger and they were driving, we were very paranoid. And that's why we put that, our own little rain gauge there, or depth gauge.
My basically back home, know how water works. And so it was, first of all, driver said it's flashing in school. But if you're representing, you go to nature, like if there's water across the road, you just turn around and go back wherever you came from, if you're not making home. And here, man wants to. And
say, "Oh, sorry, and I'll no, go home," and they'll just charge right away.
No, they tell me what to do. Well, and my daughter, that night, she comes home, she worked.
I can't imagine, like, a low water crossing like that. I can't imagine going up that and seeing water and thinking, oh, I don't know if that's not overseeing.
You know, she knew better. I think she was only 17 at the time. And she was just panicking. She wanted to get home. It was storming, lightning, and everything. She didn't want to get home. And she got across, but that was the end of that motor. And she learned a very valuable lesson. We put her out. Well, I was lucky at the time when I was working for an insurance company, and I had a bunch of friends with repair shops. I had a guy that was, I think that was not very stable after what year, but he had one that was totaled out, and it was just sitting in the shop. I think he only charged her just the labor, $500-600. Swap out the motor. It wasn't too bad. It was never really right, but yeah, it was $500. And we got what we paid for.
Less is you're fixing the car, whereas you're buying another car for $500.
That's basically it. That's basically it. That got her through the end of high school. And half of college. So did what it was supposed to do, and then she handed it off to her twin sister. And her boyfriend had changed the front tire, but forgot to tighten the lug nuts real good, so she's on her way from Austin up to Waco or something. Friggin' wheel goes flying off. That was the end of that car. No, I took a couple more screw-ups after that. Yeah, she eventually moved on from him. So, hey, everything gets you where you are now, you know. So, no, she didn't have to worry about her last vehicle that she bought, the one Sheldon motor. She spent months and months and months just trying to figure out, is this the one that I really, really want? Yeah, that's one I really want. You're really gonna pay $4,000 to get the sport package? Yeah, it was cool. Whatever, man, you're forgetting money. Thank God you're paying for it, I'm not. You could not be getting the sport package. How old is your baby? 18 months. I can't even remember that far back. Good times. No sleep.
I was actually kind of disappointed.
You know, to go, to see some good places.
It's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I'm excited to just have some.
You see it on the news.
Yeah. Yeah, baby ecosystem. Yeah. Like, he wants just
Oh, really? I was looking forward to that, man.
I think it's the second.
Thanks. Did you see who signed that one? That was, these are the notice of the meeting.
We're gonna beat 9:30, I think.
People for and against.
Joanne texted me, she was going to bed, so. Be the dog when you get home, so, okay.
He's like, I'm for it.
Quarter to 8, I had already texted her at 8. Might as well do something.
Wind it up.
Might as well do something at the house for dinner.
Yeah, he is. Oh, he's with the development. Yeah, exactly.
I I suppose the motion should remain anonymous as to who the arrangement is being made with?
All right, we are back from executive session at 8:58.
Okay. Okay. No motion
Next
required.
item is consider possible actions resulting from items posted and legally discussed in executive session.
Is there an action taken?
No action is required.
Okay. Next item is staff reports.
I left my computer in the other room, but, well,
And I was trying to get my log in.
I just want, there was a couple of things I wanted to mention, and I, as always, I'll open it up for questions. I know that one of the things Councilman Martinez had requested at the last meeting was an update on projects. I didn't ask her to elaborate on which projects, so I did ask the various department heads to provide project updates. Devin and John are the main two that you'll see that on, and of course, we already talked about the fence. So I know that timelines is something that's kind of missing from John's report, so I have requested that. Once I get that, I'll forward that to you.
Okay.
There was another item that was brought up prior to the meeting about some code and compliance issues. I'm working on getting a little bit more detail on the history of a couple of properties that are non-compliant, and I'll get that to you as well. I don't know what Chuck Norris did this time.
We're unicycle.
Okay, I didn't see where that was. But
You have to read the report.
why, the report's waiting back.
Right
What do you
in
mean?
the
I thought I was on it.
Takes time.
We had amount, one thing to call attention to is the airport did suffer damage yet again. If you didn't, unfortunately, the captions beneath a couple of the pictures in the beginning are incorrect.
Oh.
It talks about LED lights, and that really should be about the USDA hangar, and that's my fault because David did send it to us to review, but I didn't review it before he left town. And then the damage, I was going to just highlight, one of the doors, I don't know if it's visible, but that second picture down, there's kind of a white and blue blanket on the ground, what it looks like. That's a door. That's a hangar door laying on top of that took flight. And unfortunately, that's the hangar door that we had already repaired once. So I guess they're going to do a better job second time. The other thing I want to call attention to in this particular report is the Young Eagles. I can't say enough good things about the pilots and the people that are out there at the airport and what they're trying to do to encourage aviation. They donated, especially the cost of fuel right now and everything else. You can see the stats. They donated a ton of hours and a ton of fuel and did 127 kids were flown that day. It's pretty awesome. I was in Houston picking up my daughter. Otherwise, I would have been there just to witness that. But I'm really, really proud of the camaraderie and just what David is doing to try and lead some of those efforts at the airport.
Chuck Norris can do a wheelie on a unicycle.
Pretty impressive.
I tell you, you give that man a task.
You will see some information about the sales taxes and property taxes. I'm working on getting better information on sales tax. That's one of the things that the mayor challenged me with. So we will be getting, there's a confidential report we can see from the comptroller. We are getting that, and that'll be provided to you probably next month.
I asked one question on sales
No.
tax, or property tax.
Yes.
It's only going to take me 20 or 30 minutes.
I'm fine with that. Take 28 minutes.
In the
Exactly.
development agreement for Alsatian Oaks, it required all the property taxes to go into a separate account. That's my first question. Has that been done? We have separate accounts.
I don't know,
And my
but
second
I know that the tax collector for the county is aware of that, and so when they were having dealt with
I know,
charges in the
because I asked
past,
these questions a long time from.
yeah, and so they
and I
report,
got no
so they will
answers.
report those amounts. Whether or not there's actually an amount to report yet is a whole nother question.
The second question is, when the county distributes property taxes to the city, do they tell you which parts, how much of that X dollars is Alsatian Oaks?
Yes.
You get that number?
I can get, again, when the TERS is created, the tax collector has to account for that separately. It's
Okay,
not just the
so
city.
we know that they're telling us how much of it is
Right, but
terms.
right now, there's
But
nothing.
We're supposed to have a separate account to put it in.
Right, but right now,
Separate
there's
from all-
nothing.
Okay,
Because there's no increased value.
okay.
They only get, we only get increases of the, on improvements. I believe,
Come
on
30
improved
August.
Value. I
Come
don't think
30
it's just on the
August,
land.
those lots are going to get transferred from the developer to the builder.
Right.
And you're going to start accruing property tax.
Yeah, I would expect, and that's a whole separate issue that's not in this report, but one of the things we'll talk about as we get into the budget is what we forecast for our bond issues and what rates are doing and that kind of stuff. I'll have the financial advisory presentation to y'all at some point in the next couple of months, but there will be some adjustments because those values, there weren't any values there. They have to be there in January. So what we're watching very carefully is whether or not there's going to be any real significant value in January of 2023. That's really our target. We want them to build as many houses as they can between now and 23, because what I'd like to see is $60 million of value. That's what we're counting on, and I don't know if we're going to see that
And
or
the
not.
TERS board needs to meet
Nah,
to
that's not
discuss this
important. Why do you?
before January.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. We need to call a meeting. We make a note, we got to call a TERS board meeting.
Before it got 8 months.
Yeah, we'll probably do it with the financial advisor's here to give a report to the council as well.
Anything else on the report? I know that.
No,
Councilwoman
the
Martinez
library,
had-
there's some pictures in the library report that might cause you to question some things that I don't have answers to. They're entertaining pictures, but there was a conference that was attended, and there's pictures from that conference.
Oh, Fort Worth, sorry.
Yeah.
I do want
Three
to.
staff members.
What's that?
3 staff members.
Right. They had grants to go. That's the reason we actually, they were fully funded, so it was great from that perspective. The other thing I want to call attention to is in the Parks report, I can't drag us out 28 minutes, it's unfortunate. Was that we went and visited the Morgan's Wonderland, and we've had subsequent conversations with, what's his name?
Gordon Hartman.
Gordon Hartman. He's been I know how incredibly busy that person is. He's been very generous with his time and the time of his staff. He's offered to lend us basically one of his engineers that designs his the playground structures. What we are looking at doing right now is expanding the playground structure at the Lions Park. The vision for that structure to be basically when you go visit Morgan's Wonderland, there are 3 playgrounds. There are 2 that are right next to each other, and there's a third one that's over by a fishing area. The playgrounds are substantially similar. They're not the same, but they're really, really similar. The cost to produce them is probably very, very similar. What we are looking at doing is expanding the scope of the Lions project to basically pick up one of those playgrounds that he's done and put it at Lions Park, so it'd be a truly all-inclusive. The cost of doing that, what it could cost is upwards of $500,000 to $1 million. It would be a very expensive thing. Obviously, we don't have the money to do that. We have approached him and his foundation to see whether they'd be willing to contribute. He has not said no. He's supportive of the effort, but I think there's also the opportunity to go out and look at corporate sponsorships, whether it's the car dealerships that are in town or this new hotel project or some of the others. I think that we may find there are more people than you realize that are impacted by people who have mobility, vision, and hearing challenges than you realize. And they're willing to give to those efforts if you make it known. So that's what we're gonna kind of expand that vision, and then there'll be a fundraising campaign. I know that the mayor will probably be very involved in some of that, but that's a pretty important project that's I'm excited about.
Corporation that we can approach about that.
Yeah, I figured you did. And inclusivity is a big part of that, and diversity as well. One other thing is just to mention, and it's kind of kudos, is we are working on getting the grant for the pavilion at the pool building. Basically what I've been telling Ernie and his group is, look, from a budgetary standpoint, we are maxed out at $400,000 on that building. No matter what you do, that's the amount the city's going to be able to put in. We would need to get whatever the remainder is. It has to be grants, donated, however you want to do it. And so they've put together designs. The building's well over $1 million, but the good news is that we have made it on the short list for appropriated funds by our congressman, And we're waiting to find out how that all turns out, but he's looking at earmarking some amount of funds to us for that project. So
Nice.
we're looking forward to those results.
Maybe you'll heat the pool for us.
Yeah, if we do that project, that'll be a drop in the bucket to make happen.
So in regards to the code compliance, I talked to the mayor. Did you want to bring up about the cleanup for the city?
Well, so we have been doing, to Carl's credit, thank you, I'm tired. To her credit, she has been trying to find the people that are out of compliance, trying to help people, and we talked about this earlier, trying to help people get them into compliance. But I think Councilwoman Martinez's concern was that there is a property over by River Bluff that is at the entrance of River Bluff that is far outside of compliance. And
No,
It's been
not at
for
the entrance.
years.
Are you talking about the one behind, the one on Old US Highway 90?
Yeah.
it's basically one of the entrances, you got to go by it.
Yeah, so there were efforts made to try and help that group out.
I know I was there.
You can't force them. No, there've been conversations, very difficult. Carl is persistent, if you don't know that about her.
Yes.
So we are trying. There was, the son at one point got involved and tried to get Waste Management to bring a trailer. Problem is they can't put it in the right-of-way, and they physically did not have enough room to place the dumpster, and so they ended up having to cancel the dumpster. So that was a big blow to what could have been a good effort to get that property cleaned up. So now they've kind of resorted to putting stuff on the curb. I do have an update about that. I was going to give it to you prior to the meeting, but I'm waiting. I really want to try and get more information about the citations that have been issued, because there have been some at that property. So I want to get that information to you before providing all the details.
And what about the junkyard place on Geneva coming to our neighborhood? The one that has warrants issued for?
Again, you and I need to have a separate conversation about
Okay.
that. I want to be careful what all we talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
in open session about that kind of stuff.
Okay. 'Cause once
So
again, I have people come to
If
me,
only
they're
if
like,
only I knew
hey.
where and how to find you, neighbor.
But I mean, I've got people that in the district, they're seeing these two locations
every day.
and they're like, hey, I get a ticket for having too much of my wood piled when I set out my brush, but these people are allowed to keep going. And
You can
be-
tell them they're being fined and ticketed as well.
I have,
Yeah.
but it still hasn't been corrected, so they're like,
And they will continue to get fined. And as long as we're consistent about this, we have to enforce our codes, otherwise they're not.
I think we should enforce them too.
We should enforce them.
is the parking out near the baseball fields getting better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been out there a couple of times, and I know Jim has talked, and Ray's here, he can speak to it, but I think compliance has improved greatly.
Okay.
I don't know if they're still active out there, actually, but I've been out there a couple of times, and we haven't had those issues yet.
Okay, I was just looking at the safety of the little kids because they
Mhm.
kept running across it.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
No Frogger. All right. Anything else? All right, I think, let's see, we have discussion on future agenda items. Is there anything that we're missing right now?
I've got to schedule an EDC meeting. We're looking at, I've got to send out that email, but we're looking at either Monday, I think it's Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday of the week of the 11th of June.
For which meeting?
For EDC meeting. Right? Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the week of the 6th, June.
Talking about the 10th of June, that's
Yeah,
Friday.
we were looking at the 13th, the 14th, or the 16th, I thought. It could be oh no, the council meeting is 14th, so it was the 13th, 15th, or 16th. It was Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday that week. And I will send out something to the EDC board for them to provide feedback on. But as I have 3 members here, I thought I'd mention.
Do we know when we're going to start the budget process?
Never. No, actually, so the first kind of hint of that will be at your retreat. You do have, this is a reminder, it's an upcoming meeting, by the way, you do have a retreat on, this is Memorial Weekend this weekend, following Memorial Weekend on Tuesday, the 31st, and Wednesday, the 1st, we will have a council retreat. Unfortunately, our workshop, unfortunately, the golf course was not available. The Hilltop wanted to charge us way too much money, and so I think we're going to end up just doing it at the airport. Or here. Actually, y'all can tell me. And we'd either do it at the, oh, that's that's right, airport was booked. Yeah, we can't even book our own freaking airport. So we'll have it here.
That's good.
We'll have
I
it here.
thought Todd was going to host us.
The issue is it has to be open to the public, and he's behind a private fence, and I don't really want to ask him to have to do that because.
Fair enough, yep.
Yeah.
Do we have times?
It's, yeah, all day, I don't know.
Like 9 in the morning to whatever?
Yeah, it's a 2-day retreat during the week. Normally, what I try to do is like a half day on Friday and then a half day on Saturday, but we're doing this Tuesday and Wednesday. So you tell me what you're comfortable with.
Okay. Because I'll have to step out on the 31st. My parents will be arriving in town, so I've got to open
What
up.
time are they getting here?
Don't know. They're driving in from Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
I'll drive slow.
I hope they, yeah.
They're leaving on the 30th to come here, so they'll be here sometime in the afternoon on the 31st of May.
Okay. So do
Gotta
y'all
let
have
them
a
in the
preference for timing, when these workshops take place? I try not to keep you all day long.
Not to be all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start them in the morning and figure out how long they need to go. I want to make sure that we're covering everything, but
Y'all want to start at 8 in the morning? You want to start at 9 in the morning?
It's good.
8?
Eight's
So we'll
good.
start at 8. I imagine we'll be
Sorry,
done by
Deborah.
3 o'clock. We'll try to be 8 to 3 both
Means
days,
Deborah's got
no
to
longer than
hit the
3.
door at 7, so.
Does that work? No longer than 3 o'clock? What?
Just get some times. No, we're good.
Yeah, 8 to 3.
okay.
No longer than 3 o'clock.
Another item, I've had several requests, and I need to look at changing the city council meeting time, pushing it out slightly, so we'll do that.
Terrible idea.
I know, for you guys.
No, I'm saying it just, I know, due respect to Merce, but he's the one guy that shows up, that wants to show up at, 6. I've worked for many, many cities. I think Cynthia can speak this too. We set time at 5, we set it at 6 so people can be here, then no one shows up at 6. So really and truly, I would encourage the council, because don't think about the staff, I could care less.
Well,
I
I
have
think we
6
talk
o'clock
about-
meetings, 6:30 meetings.
I think we talk about that during the item, so we'll just say that it'll be on the item.
Okay. But, yeah, y'all need to pick a time that works for you. That's my strong advice.
So we'll talk about that. That'll be an agenda item coming up.
Discussion item.
And remember, on the SharePoint are the future, or the agenda pending list, so make sure you're taking a look at that. Was there anything else? All right. So then we are through the agenda, and we are adjourned at 9:16. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, we don't get applause. That's awesome.